Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's live ranking all the MCU projects, all 51, all the movies of all five phases, and all the Disney Plus TV shows. And this is part two, of course, continuing from our previous part one that we did a week ago, and joined by the same special guest. First joining me is Darrin. Thanks for joining me. I know the city is on fire right now. There's probably rioters right out front of your house right now. So thanks for braving it.
I had to maneuver through scores of rioters and ICE agents in order just to get to my garage. God, no, geez, you guys have no idea how big Los Angeles is, do you? No, that's no, we're fine. Look, none of us are fine, but that's beside the point. I'm excited to be here and distract us with a little bit of MCU discussions for the evening.
Indeed. Well, even if you were downtown LA, I'm sure there would not be.
There would again. It's like 2 blocks. It's 2 blocks in downtown, and that's it. Look, I've seen Philadelphia Eagles fans get more excited than the riot had downtown.
I can vouch for that. Yes, and also joining us from the other side of the country, Don. Don, thanks so much for joining.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
And also joining us is Rob.
Hello, everybody. Actually, it's not that dramatic. It's just your good buddy RDJ here to help out this little ranking thing that we got going on here. And I was just in town hanging out with Rob, rewatching a bunch of MCU stuff, wanting a little advice about how to play, the old Doomster. First thing he said was, the guy is one of the most serious people in the Marvel Universe. He does not have charisma, does not have any sense of humor, really. So I was perfect to be called in to play this guy. And so, get a few tips here from my friend Rob. I'm a big fan of Severance. That's how I found this channel. So I'm just happy to be here, part of this, and maybe make Rob's list sound a little better.
All right, got RDJ himself joining us.
Our very own Doomsday rankings.
Bill Casey says this list is doomed. Absolutely doomed. Anyway. All right, so let's see here. Let me start by just listing off what we got going so far. So first thing I want to announce, this is part 2. There is going to be a part 3. So originally the plan was to do the top 25 in this stream, but since we went for 4.5 hours in the first stream, I thought it might be a good idea to split it up a bit so we don't have to do a super long stream again, and we can talk as long as we want about each movie. You don't have to feel rushed. So we're going number 25 through number 11 in this stream. And then next Monday night, 9 p.m., we will do the top 10. So, hey, there's a list in the chat. J came in 99, of course. whose list is Jake Kamen 99 posted his list on my channel is almost the exact opposite of mine. So he's not gonna like any of my picks, but that's okay. I know I'm a weird guy. Anyway, so yeah, let me start. I don't know, you're freaking me out, Dr. Doom. Let me start by listing off what we got going so far on our list. So number 51 is What If Season 3. Number 50 is Secret Invasion. Number 49 is She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. Number 48 is Thor, Love and Thunder. 47 is The Marvels. 46 is The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. 45 is What If Season 2. 44 is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. 43 is Captain Marvel. 42 is Captain America Civil War. 41 is Agatha All Along. 40 is Echo. 39 Captain America Brave New World. 38 Thor Dark World. 37 Iron Man 2. 36 What If Season 1. 35 Hawkeye. 34 Eternals. 33 Ant-Man Quantumania. 32 Black Panther Wakanda Forever. 31 Iron Man 3. 30 Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. 29 Spider-Man Far From Home. 28 Black Widow. 27 The Incredible Hulk. And 26 Miss Marvel. So we were up to Rob, or Dr. Doom is the next one on the list. So go ahead and let us know what our number 25 is going to be.
Well, I thankfully was here to kind of show Rob some of the old movies that he hadn't seen in a while. I watched last week's video. Very well done. Everybody else here is great. Rob sucked. I mean, I don't agree with Captain America Civil War going so early, but that's okay. But unfortunately, me and Rob kind of had words about what was going to be first if he had the choice, because he had to re-look over everything and rewatch a whole bunch of stuff, and somehow we both eventually agreed that Daredevil Born Again is going to be number 25. Now,
Wow.
I had a lot of battles with Rob about this, because he kept saying, well, you know, it's got Frank Castle in it. It's got the best Punisher in it. It's the best Kingpin show. And it is. Vincent D'Onofrio and John Bernthal and Charlie Cox, they all bring it relatively, but we're both a couple of story and character guys. And one thing that I didn't like was just there's no Daredevil in our Daredevil. And when the best thing about your show is a guy who's only in 2 episodes, and you've got characters that are there pretty much only so that you can move them around and make the plot seem like it makes more sense than it does. And so that is why, for me, and basically because it's kind of hard to talk in this thing for a really long time, I'm putting it Daredevil Born Again number 25.
Wow. That's, you know, I respect that. I respect that. Daredevil, I have to say, honestly, was one of my more difficult ones to rank, because there is a lot to love about that show, but there also is a lot of things that have issues. Now, in my ranking as of today, and I will completely acknowledge with this and maybe a couple other ones, recency bias, but this was my number 10. So this ranked a lot to me. This was, while it has a lot of the same issues a lot of the Disney Plus Marvel shows do, is they kind of peter out, they lose their focus kind of at a certain point. I think because of the chemistry of Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio as Matt and Kingpin, plus bringing in a castle that felt at least more like what I think a Frank Castle is like. Not perfect, but more in the direction. And their willingness to lean into some of the violence and how it applies to a lot of more of the political thought process and political issues that are going along. I think that made me overlook, or certainly willing to lean into that stuff as positive, versus, yeah, the fact that we have a pieced together season that was done 2 different times by 2 different visionaries and then kind of put together and seeing if we can finish making an actual full arc out of this. So yeah, little Frankenstein and definitely some character issues and stuff. So I totally respect it being at 25. Again, it ranked higher for me. Maybe recency bias. Maybe I just like the chemistry of the characters together. Don?
I'm gonna say that mine, yeah, this one was a little higher for me, and you know what, recency bias could possibly be a cause for that. Um, but I'm gonna say that Doctor Doom has made some very convincing arguments for why it's at the place that it's at right now. So I will accept that, Lord Doom, and yeah, we can move right along from this because I think you guys have said everything that needs to be said about Daredevil Born Again.
So if you didn't say it, I would say it. This is next on my list as well. So that's what I would have said. It's number, let's see, 33 on my list. So that's what I'm up to on my list. Yeah, so I wanted to like it, but it's a very disjointed season. You can tell that they changed directions halfway through. And you can tell exactly when, and you can tell they reshot the opening scene and threw it in there. And to be honest, like if I was gonna compare it to the other 3 seasons of Daredevil, which unfortunately we're not doing because the whole Netflix thing would have been too complicated to include them all. But if I were to compare them, I would say it's my least favorite out of the 4. But it's looking very promising for the next season. I think the setup they got going, I just think they started off in the wrong direction, and when they came and switched forces, like that's what they should have been doing all along. I still don't. I mean, it's good they didn't kill Foggy off screen, but I think killing him in the opening scene is only slightly better. Like I just should have kept him alive. I'm sorry, but they should have. And because none of the other characters really, like that other lawyer they had, just like she's not Foggy. Like it's just not as good. And why try to replace what was already good? Like it does, but at least they brought Karen back, and it looks like she'll be around. But yeah, it was too much of a disjointed season. It took way too long to get going. It was kind of boring at first, to be honest. So, I mean, I liked it. As I said, it's overall good, but I'm more looking forward to season 2 in it. All right, so let's move over to 24, which is Darrin. You're up.
All right. Well, I guess I might kill more people's list with this because as I'm coming up to my point, list coming up, the next one who would rank over at 24. Let me just mark that down. And honestly, for a lot of reasons that Daredevil is where it is, for me, is Wanda Vision, which had a lot of great concepts and ideas. But I don't think that it always hit. And certainly it's one of those things where from a concept standpoint, I think works very well of Wanda going through time and the different kind of, sitcoms and stories and stuff that she grew up with is what she's sort of living through. But from an audience standpoint, going through several kind of just classic flashback, show recreations just got me confused. I wasn't always with the comic stylings they were with. I wasn't always with the time jumps and the little hints that they were putting in to kind of lean towards the larger stories ended up just being distractions. There were also, I just think, a few issues just how it put together. But to me, this is kind of at the top of my great ideas that just doesn't really execute fully list. I know this really hit a lot of people really big, and I'm the a-hole. I'm just going to go ahead and say that. But for me, WandaVision was one of those where, again, there were some great concepts here that I don't think really came together in a coherent way. Don?
Wow, I am kind of shocked. So this is usually, one of the better reviewed Disney Plus offerings when it comes to Marvel. So I'm actually kind of shocked to hear that you weren't really digging it. So I actually did like a lot of this series, but yeah, trying to mix the magic, and also the science of things, and trying to figure out who Wanda is to a certain extent. Like the whole thing about, she enslaved a town of people. She enslaved a town of people for essentially a fantasy life. To have her own livable fantasy, she mentally and magically enslaved people. And somehow Monica at the end of it was like, oh, they'll never understand what you sacrificed. I'm like, what? Who's gonna care what she sacrificed? I've spent the last 6 months being your puppet. Imagine being a puppet that knows someone else is pulling the strings and you can't do anything about it. So, yeah, I mean, like, there were things about it that I loved. I mean, just the fact that they were able to kind of recreate a bunch of these retro stylings, and it kind of was nostalgic a bit because you got to kind of see the evolution of television and the sitcom, all in one place in a way that I haven't seen done to this level. We got a little bit of everything in there. And that was, for me, like, if you're going to do an homage to something, I think they did a great homage to sitcoms of the past. But yeah, it took too long to figure out exactly what was going on and the motivations behind what was happening. And then the reveal with Vision, Sword, like, yeah, like there was a lot to like about it, but then there was not a lot to not love. And so, yeah, for me, I think that WandaVision has earned its spot on this list.
You're both wrong. This is my number 6. Number 6. God damn it. No,
Go back and watch again, Mark.
No, I'm sorry. I've watched it 4 or 5 times because it's so good. And all right, so I'm more into like character stuff. That is my base. And so this to me is one of the strongest character stories. I think the second to last episode, the penultimate episode that deals with her tragedy, was one of the best pieces in the whole MCU, in my opinion. It was very emotional. It really hit on the tragedy and how she experienced tragedy after tragedy and how this affected her. And also, I love the format like I totally disagree with you, Don. I thought it was perfectly paced. I love how it kept the mystery, how you didn't really know what was going on week to week, and it kept you involved. And sure, some of those mysteries didn't pay off, like the whole boner thing was a disappointment. But just the whole thing came together, and that it was about that emotional story about the grief that she experienced, and how all this was just a reaction to that. I thought was a huge payoff, and like the whole thing with it being Agatha Harkness, even though all the YouTubers figured out, it was still like a really good reveal. And I think the whole sitcom format was the love letter to sitcoms. I didn't always like care about that, but it worked for the show. And I'm sorry, I gotta disagree about I think Monica was right, because that version of her kids and Vision were real to her. They were real people. She created them, and she gave them up when she realized, and it was a huge thing for her to give them up, and she gave them up when she realized what she was putting other people through.
Wait. Dude, she enslaved.
I know, but it was subconscious. She did not do it on purpose, and as soon as she realized what she was doing, she gave up the people she loved.
But how did she get there in the first place? Is what I'm saying. Like,
it's subconscious. Her grief exploded, and because of her superpowers, it took him over. So I think it was a huge sacrifice for her, and yes, it was horrible what she put them through, but it wasn't intentional.
I mean,
and she sacrificed that as soon as she found out.
Wow, she's so benevolent to give people their lives back. Oh my!
By accident, you're being so unfair, Don. You're wrong about this.
And look, I'm going to jump in, and I have to acknowledge Alyssa Jean's in the comments. And look, yes, what is grief but love persevering? There were moments in the show were freaking amazing. I think Paul Bettany pulled some amazing jobs. There were some end moments that were great. There were a lot of really good moments, but to me, there were just also things that didn't pierce well together. So I don't want to leave this with my ranking position not acknowledging some of the amazingness that did happen.
But yes, that line
show
was absolutely amazing. Like that whole episode was amazing. But
I mean, listen, don't get me wrong. Yes, there were amazing episodes. There were amazing themes. There were amazing things that happened, right? But for one, trolling the audience. I don't like trolls. Okay,
that was funny.
I do not like trolls. Okay.
All right. Did you ever see the pitch? Did you see the pitch meeting for this? The pitch meeting was hilarious. When he was like, kept saying, "Oh,
please stand by." Yeah.
And how he's getting pissed off. He's like, I'm gonna get you for that. But anyway, Alyssa, by the way, is on Team Mark. So there we go. But anyway, the thing I will say, the two things that did bother me about the show was the whole boner thing. I thought that was ridiculous. And because you're not going to introduce the actor who plays him in the X-Men and just say, make 4 boner jokes. Like that was a bit too much. But, and the other thing is the big Marvel showdown fight in the finale. That's not the best way to go off the show. That was just the typical floating in the air, shooting stuff at people. But I did like the emotional impact. So to me was top 10. But anyway, let's go ahead and get Dr. Doom's opinion on this.
Doom allows other words of dissent before he speaks. How was that better? Was that a little more like, because I know that I'm usually just really funny, but I'm trying to go for serious here. So this choice is acceptable. But in all seriousness, listening to everybody talk about all their points, and I just rewatched a lot of this, and I've decided, you know what, I'm going to relent on this whole the kids being real and not wanting the Young Avengers and all this other stuff, and just kind of talk about the ending, because I'm good with all of it. I think it's a fantastic show. I think the way that they did a lot of things was really, really good. And I think that the ending also could have made, in effect, Doctor Strange 2 a little better if the ending to WandaVision had been to just go full villain, because this was a villain origin story. It is how Wanda, through all of it, becomes who she becomes in Doctor Strange 2. But they let it have the soft ending. She gets to wander around town and look at all these people who hate her, and she looks kind of indifferent about it. When they went full Marvel and flying up in the sky, and she's got the, they could have had the dark hold completely take her over, so that at the end, she doesn't walk away with her tail between her legs. She leaves because she will kill all of them to get what she wants. And in her last attempt to keep something left in herself, she leaves. But we know she's a villain. She has no regrets, and she's going to get those kids back. In fact, it'd be awesome if in her fight, she destroys these versions of her children and the entire illusion, and has this like feeling of, I just, in my rage and everything, I have to learn how to control the Darkhold and get my kids back. If they had just really solidified her as the villain and not waited to reveal it fully in the movie, I think, and just embrace the villain side of it and not letting her off the hook and not letting any of us off the hook, just showing like kind of like how Kingpin is revealed in Born Again, to have not have been, he's been bad all along, just like Agatha's origin story. She was bad all along. And they at least did that. I don't like it as much as I like this, but at least at the end, they said, no, man, I told you who I am. And this is who I am. And if they had went hard on the villain angle, I think that it would be a lot better in the end.
So I will say I mentioned this in the last video. I don't know if I did mention this, but I disagree with you guys about Doctor Strange multiverse, that it doesn't match up with her. I think it does, because it does show how obsessed she was with her kids, and the post-credit screen shows her being corrupted by an evil book. So for me, it fits. But anyway, I think that's all you need, but that's just my humble opinion. So we're up to Don for our number 23.
So I had myself on mute. That was absolutely ridiculous. Numero 23. You know what? Some more kind of recent MCU film. And it caps off a franchise. It is very, very good, but still, for some reason, does not have the same magic as the previous two entries in the franchise, and that is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Liked it a lot. Didn't love it like I loved the first two. I like the themes of, finding family, about, discovering who you truly are. I love that we got Rocket's backstory. We got the High Evolutionary in there, which is, that's a villain that I think, like I was glad, like this is one of the things I love about James Gunn, is that he would have somebody like the High Evolutionary be a villain in a Marvel movie, period. Because the High Evolutionary is one of those characters that is like, if you don't really have the imagination to use him, you're not gonna. You're sorry, Echo. Stop. Sorry, one moment, please.
Technology is a bane.
Yeah, absolutely. Comes in at the absolute worst times. High Evolutionary is not a character that you just like. that's one of those characters that you have to be into comic books to know who that character even is. You know, because other than on, I think it was the Spider-Man Unlimited cartoon, he hasn't even appeared anywhere else. So I'm like, I like that James Gunn does something like that, because that's a like kind of a bold choice to go with Counter Earth as like your main set piece for the Guardians. But it just didn't have the same magic for me as the first one. And I think because you don't have the Peter Quill and Gamora, love story, like that really took something away from all of this. Um, because now they're all trying to find, like for the first time, they're trying to discover who they are. Oh, and then also, Adam Warlock. Adam Warlock, to me, unfortunately, I think they wasted him. He's not a fucking goofball in the comic books at all. I know that, again, you're talking James Gunn style. I think James Gunn style of turning serious characters goofy works sometimes, but for me, this was not one of those times. Yeah, like Adam Warlock to me is just not a character that you kind of play for laughs. Like knowing that character from the comic books is just like yeah, you could have picked someone else to do this too. Like you already did it with Drax, and it kind of works for Drax because he's not a big time character like that. Anyway, he doesn't really have a discernible personality or any sort of traits that really make him stand out, other than the fact that he's big, strong, and like green and purple. Like they actually improved on him by giving him all of the tattoos and all that stuff, which then they adopted into the comic books. But Adam Warlock was like a central figure in the original Infinity Gauntlet saga. So to see the character now kind of just used as like as comic relief, it's just like, yeah, to me that was a waste of a character. I like the fact that they basically capped off this version of the Guardians, and if we never get to see another Guardians movie after this, we can still say that we got a complete story. It was coherent. All three heartfelt, but unfortunately, I just felt like this was a little bit of a step down, and I think the lack of Gamora and Quill was the thing that may have actually kind of ruined that for it.
So you guys are just destroying my top 10, like right and left. So this was number 10. So it's not like I love it, but I do rather like it.
That's what you get for ruining Winter Soldier. Okay, how dare you do that to Winter Soldier?
No, Civil War, not Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, that was Rob.
Wait, no, Soldier's still up. It hasn't been ruined yet.
Yeah.
Wait, why did I? It hasn't. Okay.
I'm getting confused with Civil War.
Okay. Yeah. You know what? Still, yes, you still ruined Civil War. Damn you.
Whatever, Don. So yeah. I don't think this is an amazing movie, but I did rather like it. It is my favorite of the Guardians movies. I think the first one is overrated, and the second one I thought was just okay. But this, like, I love what they do with this. Like, I think the main villain, Revolutionary, whatever hell he's called. Like, he wasn't a great villain, and that shit with Adam Warlock was dumb. But to me, this had like the best character story we get with Rocket. Like, it's really impressive that they take a like CGI raccoon who for the first 2 movies was just there for comic relief and to make the odd joke and talking about wanting to steal people's prosthetic limbs, but they actually gave him a character and gave him a tragic background and gave him a really great character story. And I gotta be honest, and this is just me, my musical taste, I know people would disagree with me, but I actually like the music much better in this film than in the first 2. I guess I'm not a fan of those 70s songs. I like a bit more modern music. For example, the moment where they were playing No Sleep Till Brooklyn by Beastie Boys while they were like slow walking in was like the most badass moment in the entire MCU. And I like what they did with Star-Lord and Gamora. Like, they didn't like try to just reset everything and like, oh, we're in love again, but they said, no, I'm a different person now, and they went their different ways. And there was a lot of the humor was much better than the first 2, especially the second one. The humor in the second one really bothered me. This time, I thought they got it just right. I loved it. So, yeah, as I said, it's not one of the best movies ever, but strong enough for me to make my top 10. Anyway, Rob, you're up.
Wait, for top 10?
It was my number 10. I already said that.
I know, but I'm just like, 10?
He really likes raccoons, man. And I appreciate why you liked this. For me, one of the reasons why it's was like, I think I had it at number 22. Like, let's see, 23. I think. It's because I'd already seen this story, and twice, and most recently in the Telltale games. They had a Guardians of the Galaxy thing where they focused on Rocket's backstory. So I already saw it. It was nice that they adapted it well. And yeah, it's emotional. You feel things for that part. And I that was the best part to me as well of this. But I'd already seen it. And so with the mix of Adam Warlock being a joke, which just didn't sit, like the High Evolutionary, well cast, but I feel like he's definitely a niche villain, but so are all the Guardians of the Galaxy and the Eternals, bunch of niche characters that, if done well, are great. And I think they got the right actor, but I think the High Evolutionary is a character that should have been around longer. Stop killing the villains. Like Spider-Man, No Way Home, man. There's all of a sudden, we're here to actually stop these people, not kill them. We actually should rescue and rehabilitate people, blah, blah, blah. Even if they can't be, they at least get stopped. And I think that the High Evolutionary, I have another thing I could talk about that would go on longer about some of these villains, how they don't need to have full arcs because we'd be doing this forever. But they're blowing through big, epic, like if you want to call these guys like Omega level characters, they're blowing through them fast. And pretty soon they're not going to be anybody left except for when they switch over and start making mostly X-Men stuff. But I agree with everybody's assessments on this. I just, I guess I'd say top 10 is a little high, but it's his list, man.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really disagree or add too much to what's already been said. This was my number 20. So it's not far from where it was on the list for most of the reasons that everybody says. Guardians of the Galaxy never really hit with me the same that I know that it hit with a lot of other people. The second one we've already talked about because it's lower on the list because that's where it deserves to be. This, I think, is kind of appropriate because we haven't gotten to Guardians 1 yet. And I think this ranks between the two of them. So this seems to make spot. Yeah, stop killing bad guys. On the other hand, great emotional story. I've always loved Rocket, so the fact that this became the focus of the character or of the story, I think was a really good choice. But I think that also worked because, like Mark said, you were denied the story of Peter and Gamora, because of what happened with Infinity War and Endgame. And, you know, that's got to suck for James Gunn, who maybe had a different vision of where he wanted to take the third part of his movie and then has to kind of completely adjust. I think for having to do that, it ended up telling a really good story. And I think the fact that you had loss and having to let go and move on gave a certain poignancy to this particular story as well, especially considering that this is, again, it's Gunn's end. He's gone. He's off over to DC. He's doing Superman and such now. So, as a way to say goodbye, I think this was a great way to do it. But yeah, I think it sits where it does for a reason, because it's a good film with a lot of big hits, but also suffers from some of the just choices it is forced to make.
I think it's a shame that this got pushed back because the whole controversy thing, because it was supposed to be before Thor Love and Thunder, so it would have been great if Thor was in it, which was the original plan, but instead the Guardians had a brief cameo in that bad movie, which which was underusing it.
True, but I don't think Gunn wanted to deal with Thor. I've seen various interviews
Really?
where he's like, I don't want to deal with this character, so it might
Well,
end up working out, but the politics that
Yeah.
permeated this movie, yeah.
I heard that was the original idea. I'm sure Gunn would have been able to handle them much better than the way the Guardians were in Thor. But anyway, so we're up to me. And so what are we at? Number 22, which is number 32 on my list. So only 10 behind. And speaking of Thor, the first one. Fine. This movie's fine. Like, it's fine. Like, it's kind of one of those. I wasn't a huge fan of Phase One, if I'm being honest, because they were more of like the typical comic book movies, and it wasn't until later phases that they started going off in different directions. Not that I hate it, but it's just like, introduced Loki, which is cool, and introduced him as a villain, and yeah, it's a movie. It happened, and it's fine. Yeah. So anyway, that's all I have to say about that. Rob, you're up. All right. Well, we lost him for a second.
We've lost Doom!
All right. Here we go.
You're muted.
All right, everybody. Sorry about that. The only thing I really will say about Thor is that we have to remember, well, I don't know if you want to remember this or not, but Thor and a lot of these Phase 1 movies weren't even made by Disney. This was Paramount. So like Paramount, we had Captain America, the First Avenger, and Thor. And this even looks different than the other movies. It has I don't know if you ever notice how certain studios movies look, but this looks like a Paramount movie more than a Disney movie. Chris Hemsworth, he was just figuring out this character. He looks weird in this movie to me. And as he kept playing the character, he got better and better at it. But I don't know. It's a weird little movie, and it's a lot of good, interesting origin stuff that I think like kind of falters once he leaves Asgard and enters our world, and he's like the fish out of water story. That I don't know. I like its simpleness after he leaves Asgard. Like, he's got all these big things going on in Asgard. Then he just comes here and it's just save a small town and become worthy again. It's pretty simple and basic. We also get, Jeremy Renner's Hawkeye, which is great. Phil Coulson's back as always. But overall, yeah, I agree. Some of these Phase 1 movies weren't like the best. But I had this A little bit higher at like, let's see, 18. So it was in my top 20, but pretty low on that top 20 list.
Yeah, I had Thor at 32 on my list. Look, Thor is better than it really has any right to be. This had to be one of the most like confusing properties to try and adapt is how do you tell this story? And to be perfectly honestly, the fact that they got Kenneth Branagh to direct and who basically told a Shakespearean story, I think was the best choice that you could make for this. I think it gave it a tone. It again, were they able to adjust off of this later on into better choices and really kind of expand? Yeah. But from a point of I've got nowhere to go, how am I going to tell this? Great, we're going to tell a Norse Shakespeare story of kind of like the brother betrays the other brother, and then you've got to fight back, and you do this, and we do it's kind of a little Hamlet, a little bit of Macbeth, a little couple of things we'll throw into here. Certainly, there was a maybe over love of Dutch camera angles throughout this movie. A lot of angle effects on that. And is it complex? No, it is. It's very straightforward. It doesn't really have a whole lot of, there's not more than anything of what it's putting in front of you. But I think certainly as an introduction to this character, a choice of how do we tell this kind of story, and it being phase one while they were still trying to get even feel. And yeah, I think this was before Disney got them. So they were just partnering with a bunch of different studios in order to try and get things going. The fact that they got something that connected this character and was able to build upon, I think was, and it's a decent, solid movie without really any huge, I think, flaws within it. I think works great. And the fact that they managed to, within that, cast not only Hemsworth as Thor, but Hiddleston as Loki with what they were able to end up doing with that character and going forward. Yeah. This gets a lot of credit just for the fact that it was able to exist. And yeah, is it a great film? No, but it does its job. It's kind of entertaining.
So I will agree about Thor 1. Like I liked the movie a lot when I had originally seen it. And now going back and watching it again in hindsight and after so many other movies have come out, yeah, now this kind of seems very mundane. Even with the amount of bombastic action that it had, Jotunheim, nice little sequence at the end with the destroyer. Something about it, it's like it looks big budget, but somehow doesn't feel big budget. Like especially that little town in the desert, because it's like, all right, well, you got a town with there's like no housing. I saw stores, you got shops and everything, but it's like, where do the people actually live? Like, this is the center of town? Okay. And nothing else? So that was the only thing that kind of like, that's one of the things that unfortunately, adds to the feeling of, or the look that makes it feel small budget, even though that this was a big budget movie. You can tell by the effects. I mean, because the effects still hold up today, right? And especially the destroyer, because that's one of the ones where you're putting it into a more realistic environment. Everything that happens, in Jotunheim or in Asgard is all in the CG environment anyway, so they're going to be able to make it blend with it. But when you can bring things that, if you don't get this right, it doesn't work because it's standing in the real world next to like actual real world things, if you can still make it, if you can make it look good there, then you've won the game on visuals. Uh, but even with all of that, still somehow this $100 million movie somehow feels like a $30 million movie. And I'm not sure how they were able to pull that off. But yeah, I mean, like I liked the movie a lot when I had originally seen it. Still like it to this day. But I think it definitely it's in the right spot on the list, because unfortunately, it just like while it still holds up, it still feels like something is missing. That's all I got.
I was gonna say earlier when you said I ruined the Winter Soldier, were you talking about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier? I thought you were talking about Captain America Winter Soldier.
No, I was talking about Captain. Like I got because for some reason, like I
because I
got mashed it together.
I did ruin the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I will say that. But anyway, anyway, so we're out over to Rob for number 21.
All right, folks. Okay. So this is number 21. We're old enough to drink now. All right. So you might need a drink after this one because it's a strange placement, maybe. I rewatched. Like I said, I was rewatching a lot of stuff, and I really, really can't state enough how much I actually like the first hour-ish of this movie. Then it's in the back half of this movie that completely lost me, and it's Black Panther. I think it's a solid movie. I love the character T'Challa. I like his introduction. I love his introduction in Civil War. And I couldn't wait to see them show us the world of Wakanda. And we got a lot of the like cultural stuff, which is like, it's weird to me. I love though the blend of tradition with technology. I really liked all the characters and how they introduced everybody. And the action sequences I thought were better in like at least in the first half, all the way leading to the like Killmonger entering the throne room, and then that's where the movie lost me completely. And I just did not like the back half of this movie, and that's the only reason why it's here, because I was looking at the other movies and I went, if I don't want to, I didn't finish it. And if I don't want to finish it, then it had to go there. And it really bums me out because I actually think this movie either should have been longer. It gave me more of Killmonger. And I even almost think that like this movie, knowing what we know now, we can't change it. But I would have split this movie into two where this movie ends with Killmonger in charge and T'Challa on the run and having to figure out how to regroup for the big end move to take Wakanda back. But that's not what we got. We got this. And I really wanted to like Killmonger more, but I just didn't get enough. And but I loved the background setup. And I also love, he had this plan that in the end is still, I'm trying to take over the world. But he had like other purposes that he was kind of delusional about it. But anyway, that's where I put it. I'll stop talking because I got to breathe.
Yeah. God, there were so many great things in Black Panther. I guess the biggest problem is ahead, and certainly not a blow to Ryan Coogler in any way, shape, or form. I think he was able to pull out an amazing film that really showed a lot of culture and attitude and everything that was done in this. The problem I have is his introduction in Civil War was just so freaking badass that I felt like we had to do a lot of repetition in this film to kind of re-grab that. The fact that he comes and has to become Black Panther again, and then he has to have another challenge to his thing again. I mean, we literally like repeat the same ascendancy ceremony twice. I think really just it just really cuts under the possibility of the film. And I get what they were trying to do is now, wait, we have this intro, now we want to give this character their full due, but it just caused them to repeat a lot of the same storylines. And the fact that there was budgetary issues that really compromised, I think that whole third act fight scene was really unfortunate, considering I think the early establishments. Look, I love the casino fight scene and the chase in through that city right there. And I think if you're going to be introducing Martin Freeman in as a character, that was a pretty decent way to do it. It did feel unfortunate that at a point it's like, okay, we got to have the white guy do their contribution to show that he's here for a reason. And that felt a little tacked on and unnecessary on that. You know, I don't think that the film needed that outside of they've got to kind of include everybody. God, honestly, your idea of splitting the movie into two parts and having the pre-Killmonger, post-Killmonger, that would have been pretty badass. Obviously, it changes what the availability for Infinity War and things and that, which would be issues, which might have given them certain constraints of where they could go and what they could do within the film that they could make. But yeah, look, this was number 22 at my list, so it's kind of about the place where I would rank it anyway. It's a good film that I think really shows Chadwick Boseman. I think visually it's amazing. I love the world of Wakanda, and I love the possibilities that it sets up. Umbatu, again, another freaking amazing character that they bring in. But I think that it's just, yeah, again, it suffers from a lot of repetition and kind of what the story of the day is. Oh, yeah, we finally have Claw. Bam! All right, no more Claw. Stop killing bad guys, man. Stop it. Anyway, Don.
So I'm definitely going to say that I agree about killing Claw. Because we only got to see a glimpse of him, with the arm cannon. We didn't get to see him in his final form, as it were. So I definitely agree about that. And I'm going to say, Rob, great point about splitting the movie into, like, if the first one is T'Challa loses to Killmonger, and then the second one is him having to, rebuild his body. He like, imagine if you would have had M'Baku, like almost like his version of either Apollo Creed in Rocky 3 or like Mickey in the first Rocky. And M'Baku's sitting up there, talking all kinds of smack to him because he doesn't have the heart-shaped herb or something, or it's taking long for the heart-shaped herb to heal him. So things that he was able to, do before when he was Black Panther is now taking him a lot longer to get accomplished. So, great idea. Look, I love the movie. For me, it was number 12 on my list. So obviously, way higher up than you guys had it. But I do see your point when it comes to certain things. I mean, Ryan Coogler, I think Sinners has proved or shown his evolution as far as storytelling is concerned. So, seeing where he started off to where he got to, I love this rung on the ladder of his evolution, because even from his prior works to then jumping and doing this, this is the first time big budget film. He was able to put together a very good story. The acting was good all around. And you got a sense of who these people are, and because they come from an isolationist society. We got to, get the backstory as to why they are an isolationist society, and also the fact that even though they are a singular country, they still have different factions. So, different people from different parts. Now, I wish they would have shown more of the actual kind of day to day of the different tribes, because really the only ones that we got to see how different they were was Mbaku's clan, because they were all the way in the mountains. So for them, like we see, like, oh wow, you guys live way different than everyone else. Like, it snows where you live. And when you think about Africa, period, you do not think about snow. So for them to live in some snowy mountain area, it's like, wow, okay. You know, if it is fiction, they made it feel real. So I like the fact that they were bold enough to go and say, okay, we're gonna dig into a different culture and just show you how different a country over here is versus America, or a certain like England, or different parts of Europe. And I think they may have taken that concept and put that into Miss Marvel and kind of dialed it up to 11, because Miss Marvel has a lot of cultural things in there. And if it wasn't for Black Panther, and if Black Panther didn't work, I don't think you get that in Miss Marvel. So I like the movie a lot. Was it perfect? No, there were a lot of things in there. Well, not a lot, but there were a few things. Yes, the the PlayStation CGI fight at the end. Um, you know, Martin Freeman's character is seen as kind of a goofball. I'm like, he's a CIA agent. I think they probably had him be part of Shield at one point, maybe something. Point is, like, yeah, again, like they didn't do him Adam Warlock bad, thankfully. Uh, but still, I was like, yeah, he seemed a little too naive for his level of supposed expertise. But then again, if Wakanda was that good at keeping vibranium a secret, and they was still one of the richest countries on the planet, then you know what? Maybe he wasn't as dumb as they made him look, but Wakanda has the whole entire rest of the world. Like, maybe he was a proxy for the rest of the world. So thinking about it from that way, it might have actually been a little genius, and it's just he looked dumb around all these smart people who've been fooling the rest of the world for the past few thousand years, into thinking that, oh no, we're just a simple farming country with nothing more, little villages, and we do textiles, and oh, it just so happens that yeah, we have a little bit of the most expensive rare mineral on the fucking planet. Oh yeah, it's 2 billion a gram. So yeah, thinking back on it, I think that Ross, yeah, I think Ross was supposed to be a stand-in and a proxy for every outsider to Wakanda. So, but Yeah, I will discontinue my rant. Love the movie. Rob, absolutely great idea of it would have been better to split it into, but I think that they probably they probably weren't going to be that bold, because you just think of here's where I will leave off. Um, to kill T'Chaka in Civil War and have that be the intro to the Black Panther, and then to have the first Black Panther movie, T'Challa then loses. Like he literally just became king because his father was murdered, and then the moment he becomes king, he loses it to his cousin after finding out that his father killed his uncle and abandoned his cousin in America, and now he's here for revenge and just stole the throne from him, and that's how the first movie ends. Yeah, you know what? I don't think they were willing to take that risk. So, because if people didn't like it, what happens if the movie bombs and you don't get to tell part two? Which, consequently, that is the reason. That is one of the major reasons why George Lucas did Episode 4 as the first movie, because it was like, hey, at least if nothing else, the rebels won because they blew up the Death Star. Because if I do any of these other movies, we don't get that, and we don't get the Rebel Alliance money. Anyway, the gentleman yields his time.
All right, so, and I mentioned earlier, Jay came in 99 in the chat, how our lists were totally different. However, he said that he had this at number 16, which is exactly where I had it. So we're on the same page. In this particular case, Alyssa says, I agree with a lot of what you all are saying, but I kind of would have hated it if they split it in two, to be honest. I wouldn't say I would hate it. I think that does sound interesting, but I think I get Don's point about they don't want to risk it not being made such like Eternals. So I'm wondering if that kind of bomb. So I don't know if we'll ever get the fallback to that. So I think it works. I think it does work in one movie personally. What I liked about this movie a lot was that it was a good ensemble. The movie is called Black Panther, and I always thought maybe it should have been called Wakanda Forever, but that's the sequel. But because it's more about all the characters, and I love all the characters. I think the ensemble works, and they all have their own quirks, and the way that the movie unfolds is really interesting. And would I have liked it if they kept Claw alive? Sure. Do I think it ruins the movie? No, I don't. And Killmonger is an amazing villain. I think he was a really good villain. You can see his point of view, but he was still a villain, and those make the best villains, in my opinion. So I think he's one of the best that the MCU had. That and the strength of the ensemble. And I think even Martin Freeman, I didn't have any problems with his character. I thought his character was fine. It contributed it to the whole with all these other great characters and all the infighting and different dynamics. I think it all worked for me. So yeah. But that was a pretty strong movie. So, Darrin, we're up to you for the number 20.
All right. So, number 20 would be another Phase 4 series entry for me, which honestly I enjoyed probably more than the show really deserves. I have to say, on a rewatch, I definitely saw a lot more of its flaws, and there is a lot of just really bizarre decisions that make in it. But I think the performances are pretty amazing. I just like the world, and it just look. I've been an Egyptophile since I was a kid, so fucking Moon Knight is our number 20. Look, I think Isaac did an amazing job with his different personality approaches. I think him switching, there are several camera shots where he switches on camera from personality to personality, and it is a different person. I think it's just something that Oscar Isaac can bring to the show, which is astounding. And I think the first few episodes are great. I think it does kind of trip up with some of its decision making. I think doing sub stuff off screen where we don't see it does have one of the worst final little resolutions in doing it completely off screen and off camera, which I think was kind of a big mistake. I do really like a lot of the psychological explorations that go in with Isaac, and the trauma and how that really affects and influences the character. Rob and I have had real long discussions on the Moon Knight, so I'm curious where he is going to reign on this. There is a lot of Moon Knight that I do wish we never know if he is talking to a god or if he's actually insane or what's going on. There's a lot more mystery I really wish that they had left in the series overall, but since they committed to kind of a ideological, they're going into Egyptian gods, they're touching on those larger things. I think they went all in pretty well, and look, there's not a lot of the Disney Plus series that I want to see a season 2 of. I would really like to see what else they can do with Moon Knight.
I would be very sad if they do not have a season 2 of Moon Knight. Oscar Isaac did an amazing job with playing 3 different characters. Now, we only got to see 2 for the most part, but 2 very distinct personalities. Yes, you definitely question at some points, like, is he just crazy or is this actually happening? Khonshu is a son of a bitch. I mean, come on, let's be honest. Khonshu is a fucking asshole. But then again, what fictional gods usually aren't, right? I loved how we got the different personalities, and the 2 different versions of Moon Knight. So awesome. You got your traditional Moon Knight from the comics, and then you got, I believe they call him Mr. Knight. He's dressed up all fancy. I love the interplay, the back and forth, basically trying to figure out which one is the real personality, which one is the one that kind of came from the trauma, and trying to, like, the going back and forth between that was actually amazing. Going to the underworld, bring himself back to life, seeing and becoming the Moon Knight because of Khonshu and all that. Also very good. What's my guy? The villain. Oh my god. I don't know why I keep on wanting to say Kevin Bacon, but it's not Kevin Bacon.
Ethan Hawke.
Ethan Hawke, aka poor man's Kevin Bacon. No, you know what? Very, very good for what they gave him. Honestly speaking, thought they were going to keep him around longer, but killing villains is the Marvel way. Except unless you're Loki, or if they can find some way to turn you good, then they won't kill you. But if they think you're going to be a villain for more than one season, then you got to die. So yeah, love Moon Knight. I will be so sad if it does not get a second season, because Oscar Isaac, is a modern day Joel, and that man deserves to be working more. Honestly speaking, I think he should have been Mr. Fantastic to me. As much as I like Pedro Pascal, I think Oscar Isaac probably would have been better Reed Richards for me. So, but can't be double dipping.
Well, Mr. RDJ over there double dipping, but that's okay. So this was number 21 on my list. So 20 is right around where I had it. So from what I hear, and this could be wrong, it's all speculation, is that there will not be a Moon Knight season 2 and that he will just appear in other people's shows, which I wouldn't mind too much as long as they keep him around.
Wait, but then we don't get the resolution with the third character, though.
Well, maybe they could resolve it in someone else's show. I don't know. But like, there's a rumor that he's going to be in Daredevil Born Again season 2, but don't know if that hasn't been confirmed yet. Not like Jessica Jones. She's been confirmed. But anyway, so hyped to see her again. But anyway, yeah, I thought this was a really awesome, amazing show and totally great for the first 4 episodes, and then the last 2 episodes kind of disappointed. It was kind of especially the finale was your typical Marvel over the top, blah blah blah, and plus the other gods. It's been a while since I've seen the show, but I remember the other gods like doing something stupid and not. It was just out of character. It's like they wouldn't be this stupid. But who were the characters' name? Like Mark Spencer was the adventure guy, right? Who turned out to be the real person. And who was the British guy? Do you remember his name?
It's Mark Spector.
Spector, thank you.
And Stephen Grant.
Stephen Grant, that's right. So that's what I loved about it. I loved the first couple episodes. We saw it totally from Stephen Grant's perspective. Some people are like, "Oh, you missed all the good action sequences," but I love how they put you in Stephen's mind that he wakes up and all of a sudden he's in the middle of a fight. I thought that was fucking brilliant, and I loved how they waited a bit to reveal. And the big reveal at the end, or towards the end, that Stephen Grant was just the personality and Mark Spector was the real person. You wouldn't expect that because you were following Stephen Grant for the beginning. So I thought that was amazing. I echo what both of you said about Oscar Isaac being absolutely amazing. Great in this role. It's just a shame that they couldn't land the ending. That's all. But anyway, Dr. Doom.
Yes, Doom likes this conflicted character. Multiple things in his head, multiple plans. No, I really like Moon Knight. He's one of my favorite comic characters. I kind of like, he's compared sometimes to like Marvel's Batman. Both those guys are lunatics who like to beat the holy hell out of people on the streets. Okay. He's got interesting characters. Ethan Hawke's character, we talked about this years ago, was in one issue of a comic and was killed at the end of that comic. He was also a cult leader in that. And I didn't mind so much that he bit the dust because, he bit it even harder in that comic. It was embarrassing when we talked about it. Like, just this guy goes out like horrible. It's hilarious. I love that they leaned into the Egyptian stuff, even though I wanted what I kind of already talked about. Marvel Batman beating the holy hell out of bad guys in New York. And we didn't get that. But what we did get was interesting. And I did like that they incorporated Stephen into the story. I just wish it was a little more balanced instead of just making it Stephen's story. But they were trying to do that so we could get to the twist that Stephen is not the main personality, which makes it harder that there won't probably be a season 2 because then we could have gotten more. One of the major complaints I'll have about this, and it's not just about this, it's any time that when we talk about, what about our adventures that we've been on? And it's like, we never get to see those adventures in some of these stories. They always, show somebody at the end of a career. We've been doing this forever. And that means he's been operating for a while. You know what I'm saying? And we didn't get to see none of it. Not even in some cool flashbacks or anything. So I feel like there's some missed opportunities with not getting a season 2 for sure. Schedules, all that stuff. But if he has to come back. He is really, really cool. I want to see him pop up. I mean, I was even trying to figure out a way to get him into the new Avengers, but I don't know how that would work. Because I mean, come on, he'd fit in perfectly. Mental illness was like one of the biggest parts of that. Like, what if you don't know who you're dealing with in that bunker? You're dealing with the British guy who doesn't know nothing, or you're dealing with the mercenary who does? Like, I don't know. All kinds of potentials for this character. And I just want him to come back. He was my number 18. So not too far off.
All right, so we are up to number 19, which is over to you, Don. What is our number 19?
So, our number 19, unfortunately, I know people are going to hate this. No, actually, I hate it too. I hate that it's number 19, but had to be done. Captain America, the First Avenger. So, I love Captain America. Favorite character in the MCU. Favorite Marvel character. I'm a sucker for earnest, just good, guys. Period. And while I loved, this character, this unfortunately suffers from, that original MCU curse of, we're just going to tell a regular story. And back when you didn't expect much from comic book movies, telling a regular story that didn't have too much hype or fluff to it, it worked. This was Captain America's story from the comic book. There wasn't much added to it. There wasn't anything to really jazz it up and to make it anything more than what it was, except for them throwing in the romance with him and Peggy Carter. But other than that, it's a kind of standard paint by numbers movie. Don't get me wrong. Now, this actually did the thing that Thor was trying to do right, where you have a big budget movie, but it's not supposed to be overblown or look overblown. And because you didn't, because you didn't blow the budget somewhere else, I guess, you were able to do that because, you had the village in, was that Sweden or Denmark, wherever in the very beginning, or Norway. It's Norway. So you have the village in Norway in the very beginning. Like, they don't spend too much time in towns either. But, they recreated a pretty decent 1940s New York. Like, everything they did looked authentic for the time period. And it didn't come off as cheesy. It didn't come off as preachy at any point. It was just, your standard kind of superhero origin story. And that's not to say it's a bad movie because of that, because it totally is not. It is actually a very decent movie. But going back and watching that against some of the other movies that came, phases 2 through 4, it's like, man, like, Marvel did the right thing at the right time, because you release Captain America, the First Avenger, today, and the movie gets trashed. Straight, like, think about if you had never had this movie, and the first movie is The Winter Soldier, and then they decide, oh, we're going to go back and do Captain America's origin story. Like, it's the same kind of the same thing that that happened with Black Widow. Black Widow gets released back when the first like during Phase 1, same movie. People are like, oh, you know what? Yeah, this is actually pretty good. But released in the time when it came out, after you had Infinity War, Endgame, Civil War, to a lesser extent, Black Panther, if you're talking about, action movies or whatever, you know, Guardians of the Galaxy, after all these movies have come out, going back to some of the older ones like this, it's like, oh man, yeah, you guys came out with the right movie at the right time, because if you would have released this movie post all the rest of those movies, whatever the cinema score and the Rotten Tomatoes score is, slash that by a third. And again, that's not to say that this is a bad movie at all, but like, just because we were so neglected or so devoid of quality comic book based movies, this was one of the ones like you were able to get excited about it, because it was like, oh, okay, cool, they're sticking to the story, and then we think that they're doing a very good adaptation of Captain America's origin. So kudos to them for that. Again, I love we got the introduction to Bucky. We got the allusions to him being Winter Soldier later on. Excellent casting for Arnim Zola and also for Red Skull, because this is one of the first movies again where they're doing the thing where instead of just introducing Arnim Zola as the way that we know him in the comic books, this is the first time where they really took the villain and said, okay, well, yeah, we're gonna shift him entirely to be, the proto version of himself. So this is him before he does anything. If we any modification to himself, if we ever even have him do that, so to a certain extent, it's also an Arnim Zola origin story. It's a Peggy Carter origin story. You get a lot of origin stories here, but I think it was done. I think it was done well. But again, just post some of the other movies that have come out since, it's like, damn. I wanted to put this higher on the list, but I absolutely cannot, because it would be doing a disservice to all of the movies that have happened that unfortunately just happen to be bad.
So if you hadn't said it, I would. This was next on my list. I was about to say it. I believe it was number 31 on my list. And I don't know if you remember last time we did this thing. I think it was like several years ago, 5 years ago, or something like that. I hated this movie, and I put it it was the bottom of my list. And I rewatched it, and I was like, it's not that bad. It's actually, I learned to appreciate it a bit more. I think when it came out, for some reason, I was kind of in an I hate comic book movies phase in my life, and I was kind of just really down on it. But looking back on it, there is good things about it. I do appreciate it more. It is a Phase 1 movie, and as I said, there's kind of like, your by the numbers comic book movies, but there's some good things, such as you mentioned the actors, like Hugo Weaving was amazing, and the dude who played Zola was good, and Peggy Carter, she was a big plus, and I've of course come to appreciate her a lot more because of What If, and yeah, she was what was missing from the other Captain America movies. And it's good to see her here. And the ending was really tragic when they're talking about she having to dance, but he's having to go get frozen so he can be on, was it Unfrozen Caveman Warrior? Yeah. That's right. And the future. So, yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I think the origin story took too long. Like, they took too long to actually get it going. I think a lot of the other MCU movies kind of overcame that and never got too bogged down by the origin story like this one did. But no, it's, and also like the other, the what do they call it, Howling Commandos or whatever. I never cared about any of those characters. I was like, whatever, they were just there. But I did like the strength of him and Peggy Carter, and I think Bucky, of course, is great, and their friendship really shined through. So yeah, it was a decent movie. So anyway, Doctor Doom.
This movie is the movie that made me a Captain America fan. Didn't like the character when I was a kid, never big flag waver, thought he was like, the Superman kind of Boy Scout, right? And he is. But I was making fun. I thought it was all about patriotism and America, America, America. And it wasn't until this movie that I realized what Captain America was really about. It was doing what was right. Not like, didn't matter who it was for. And the casting in this was fantastic, top to bottom. And what I love about it is what we don't get very often, and when we do, they're usually just pretty mid. And that's like, this is a big adventure movie. Like this, and it also feels very much like the serialized stuff from way back in the day, that you'd see you see in film first. Here comes America Man with his sidekick Rippy, and they're going across to fight the Nazi hordes in Germany. It reminded me a lot of that, and I kind of didn't know that I needed that. I needed them to go heavy into this origin to just show how this little guy, which I can relate to. I mean, there's the scenes at the beginning of this movie. I'm like, I swear, skinny ass Chris Evans looked a lot like 14-year-old me, man. Where you just, you're taking a lot of bullying from everybody. It all surrounds you because you read comic books and you're a nerd and people want to push you around, and you stand up for yourself. The guy who would say and inspire you to, like, I can do this all day, and that heart. And, they didn't believe in him. He had to become, like, they didn't see his heart until he got big, unfortunately, right? Some of them saw. Haley Atwell's Peggy Carter saw, which, yeah, again, this gave us Haley Atwell, which, thank you in so many ways. I really think that it stands out in the MCU films, again, because it's such this big sweeping period piece of a movie. And, Doom, or Red Skull and Zola, all these characters that live on, they're still, well, I don't know, unless Zola's backed up somewhere, maybe he's fucked. But, in this day and age, he can just come up. He's a program now, right? So, I don't know. And it was such a great way to start, because arguably, to me, Captain America is the best of the trilogies that they made, the most consistent, and the character changes and develops. He's one of the, like, there's the RDJ fans, that like just, I mean, we all love RDJ, but Chris Evans is Captain America, man. He just nails it every time, even when he's being a goof or whatever. He calls himself on his own shit. I love this movie. I understand why it is on your list. Mine was, let's see, mine was at number 8. So you cracked my top 10, but that's okay, because we're in the top 20, which means, I mean, if we're not talking about these movies with some love, at this point, like, that should be where we should be focusing on now. It's because there's really no bad choices here. You know what I'm saying? For the most part, I'm looking at my list, and I'm just like, the only thing is every time I get picked, I have to talk about something I don't really want to talk about.
Yeah, this was number 25 on my list, but I am with Doom on so many of those points. I was also someone who did not care a whole lot about Captain America until Chris Evans took over the character. I know that during production, he fought to have his face to do the motion capture and stuff for the small version of him, as opposed to having another actor playing it, because he was convinced this is where the audience is going to emotionally connect with this character, so that when he does become Captain America, you are with that journey and you have made that connection and you are part of that. And that is entirely true. You learn why he is who he is because he's the skinny little kid. And I mean, what was the line that he says? I don't want to kill anyone. I just don't like bullies. I mean, that sums up that character so great. They do so many things that kind of get you to love this character and see why he is just who he is, so that when he becomes Captain America, you are connected. And that scene where he's racing through the streets and slamming into shops and windows and things because he can't control the power that he has suddenly available to him, I think was shot incredibly well. It's a phase 1 movie. It's not one of the better ones, but it does everything that it needs to do. And primarily, is casting. Sebastian Stan is Bucky, and the decision to put them as equals, maybe even Bucky a little bit older, that he's been looking out for little Steve Rogers and such and making sure that he's safe, so that when it's twisted around, you don't have this, like, I'm Captain America and the 12-year-old that I go through World War II with fighting Nazis. Okay, that does not work visually in today's audience. And to cast Sebastian Stan in this role, who I'm sorry has become one of my favorite Marvel characters of all time, is Bucky Barnes, was just an amazing job. They did great casting to make emotional hits with you. We have our Stanley Tucci as our scientist that makes him and explains the whole things. He's got one of my favorite lines in this movie as well, which is like, a lot of people forget that the first country the Nazis invaded were their own. I'm not going to say whether or not that's currently poignant for all of us, but it's certainly a statement of saying, of like, it's just this kind of, we connect with the humanity of all of these characters. And while, yes, man, that one action montage, we really wish we were getting some good Captain America. And I think that's in some ways the one audience failure bit, is we don't get those big Captain America scenes. They're kind of like montage through because they've been spending so much time on other things. Mark, you're right. I think there would have been a little structural difference in this at this particular time if this was redone. But again, I think it lays the groundwork for, as Rob was saying, I think the best character trilogy that we have in Marvel. And I think while it unto itself is not one of the greats, it's a solid movie that lays a lot of groundwork that they're able to really spring off of and create some of the best of the Marvel movies, in my opinion.
All right, so we have unfortunately come to me. What are we at now? Number 18. So it's still number 18. It's still in the top 20. But at the start of the stream last stream, I said that there were 3 list busters on my list that I knew would bust everyone's list. And I said the first one already, Captain America Civil War. So I'm now about to say the next one, which I really didn't like as much as everyone else liked. It was still number 28 on my list, so it's not like I hate this movie. I like it, but not as much as everyone else does. And that is Spider-Man No Way Home. I thought that the first hour was really, really good. I love MJ, Zendaya, all the way. I think she's amazing. I love the chemistry she has with Tom Holland. I love seeing Doctor Strange in the movie. It was great. It was a nice addition, and the way they played with the multiverse. But here's the thing. I do not care about the Spider-Man Sony movies. I never liked them. And all this is because Darrin in the last stream called Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness Fan service the movie. I disagree. I think this was fan service the movie. It's like the whole thing was like, oh, this is that villain from that one movie, and this is that other villain from that one movie. And then once they introduced the other Spider-Man, I'm like, oh, this is the other Spider-Man from that other movie. Like, I'd rather them do something interesting with the multiverse rather than just using it as an excuse to do nostalgia for old Spider-Man movies. Maybe that's just me. And also, I kind of had a problem with the fact that everything that wrong that happened in the movie was Spider-Man's fault. Now, I know some people like that, thought it was a good character story, but I don't know. It just doesn't sit right to me if the heroes are just cleaning up their own mess. And also, the Aunt May death scene, I hated. Especially her saying don't kill her all, first of all. And the other thing is they're saying, oh, with great power comes great. Are you fucking serious? Like, when I said that, I really like rolled my eyes in the head. Are you really doing this again for like the 50th time? Like when you're killing off a great character? Like, I don't know. That didn't sit right to me. But I like the chemistry between the characters, MJ and Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, and some of the weird visuals, like Doctor Strange chasing Spider-Man in the what they call it, the mirror realm or whatever they call it. Like, that was really good. So yeah, I don't totally hate this movie. There's things I like about it. Totally love the first hour. Not so hot on the second hour. Anyway, Rob.
Oh, God damn it. Sorry, I was getting an important call from Latveria and had to take it. Sorry, it's on another call. My bad. So Spider-Man No Way Home. I can see your points. I was late to go see this movie because I was kind of against all the Sony stuff in the movie. And then I went and saw it, and it turned me around because life's too short. I don't know. I really enjoyed the redemption of Adam Garfield's Spider-Man, who proved, I loved Tobey Maguire returning, and I didn't think I would. I agree, the whole thing with it being Spider-Man's fault. I think the story and how, again, it had to start from what I already didn't like, which was everybody knows who Peter is now. So the whole movie has to be about how does he fix that. So already going into this movie, that's one of the reasons why I wasn't excited to go see it, because I didn't really want to see that plot. And then they gave me a whole lot of stuff that hit me in the right areas. They manipulated me. I allowed myself to be manipulated. Doom does not usually let this happen, but somehow they reached into my mind like Professor X, and they made me relive those moments, and it broke me until I loved it. And I'll never forgive them for that. I'm coming for you. But in all seriousness, I had a lot of fun with this movie, but I absolutely get that. Yeah, this is so much fan service, and I just hope that wherever they go from here in Spider-Man land, we can bring it back down to earth a little bit.
Yeah, I cannot disagree with you about this being fan service, the movie. It is not the fan service, the movie. We will be getting to that, I am sure. But this... The problem with this is like Sony's wet dream that it has been trying to do for like 15 years. And I think that really kind of, to me, colors so much of this. Is Sony has been trying to get its Sinister Six going since the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, and that messed up. And then they were trying to do it quickly with the Andrew Garfield one, and that all messed up. And it's like, well, dude, at least you guys waited for like 2 movies to come out before you finally found some way to throw all this stuff together, and there's the multiverse, so that gives you a reason. I think that's why this kind of colors a little more darkly. On the other hand, as a way of weaving in the feels in a movie, this does a great job of this. From the nostalgia, oh, let's throw all those nostalgia things. Remember this guy and this scene and these moments and these people. Oh, you loved all these. Here, just throw some of this with these actor. And okay, yeah, we got Electro. I know you guys didn't like him. Fuck it, we'll just change his character and nobody will care. We'll just move on with that part. And this is all great. But yeah, and look, that Garfield saving MJ, man, that hit me so hard, and I loved that. It makes you think that those Garfield movies were better than they actually were. Seriously, go rewatch them. You'll realize why you don't really. There are moments, yes, but it doesn't piece together. And there is so much great stuff with with Spider-Man deciding we have to save these people, not kill them. It's so poignant for Spider-Man's character. It is at least a great philosophical change for Marvel's heroes to kind of like come after, that it's not all about like stopping them forever. Okay. The Punisher means nothing if everybody's the Punisher. Okay. We got to have variances here. And look, they Uncle Ben and May. I don't know. It worked. I totally get where you're coming from, Mark. I do, in the feels of like, oh, I thought we got around this. But as a way to do it for this character in this arc of the story, before they kind of begin their own personal alone journey, I think that worked great. And to get rid of Aunt May and kind of really have Spider-Man be on his own, to me that all worked. But I totally get what you're saying. This was what, number 21 on my list. So not too far from where it is. Again, it does some things great. I love seeing all the actors and Alfred Molina back, and that was all great. But it was also just too much like, man, you're really going for the member berries on this. It's a member berry salad right here. We're going to put as many things on there to tug at those emotional heartstrings, and we'll just piece together a story. I know where we left things. We'll spend 5 minutes and completely ignore all that, move past it, and then get to the movie that we want to make now. I think that's also another thing that gets annoying with some of these movies, is like, we left the movie here, but the next person's like, fuck that idea. We're going to do something completely different. Anyway, Don, what do you think?
Okay, so to me, honestly speaking, this is probably the most Spider-Man story ever. Spider-Man is about sacrifice and hardship. At the end of the day, this is a guy who just always has problems. Always. And for me, it was one of those things where, like, especially when it got to the end, and he basically had to sacrifice his entire existence in order to be able to save his friends. Because again, yes, he's the one who caused this problem. But yeah, it was one of those things where I was like, this is absolutely the most Spider-Man story ever. Like everything else that they've done up to this point, especially with the MCU stuff, and there's the whole, oh yeah, he's just Iron Man Jr. Okay, cool. But this story is one of those things to me that when you think about a quintessential Spider-Man story and what he's gone through and the sacrifices that he's had to make, that sometimes people don't even realize that he's made. It's, what he has to give up so that other people can have a normal life. That is who he is at his core. Now, mind you, yes, was this fan service the movie? Yes, this was fan service the movie 1.0. because I remember going to the movies with my girlfriend at the time, and when Matt Murdock showed up on screen, the entire movie theater erupted, and she's like, Who's that?" I'm like, "It's Daredevil. You didn't? Oh, you haven't watched Daredevil. Oh, you haven't watched Daredevil. Okay. It's okay. It's okay." So yeah, for me, having little things like that, like yes, we love the Willem Dafoe and Alfred Molina and Sinister Six of it all. We love that. Um, but again, just the fact that as far as a Spider-Man story goes, if you take a look at his most famous arcs, they're all about loss, sacrifice, and what is it that I have to do, or what am I gonna have to give up so that the people that I care about are able to be able to walk the streets and not have to fear, getting, kidnapped or killed by a supervillain. Um, and a lot of times that sacrifice, when it comes to Peter Parker specifically, is usually very extreme. And so this was, this kind of rivaled Brand New Day. Well, no, not Brand New Day, but One More Day. In terms of, hey, One More Day, that whole storyline was they were gonna kill off Aunt May, and he was like, "Nah, look, I need her around. What do I have to give up to have Aunt May here? Because the only reason why this is happening to her is because I'm Spider-Man." Boom. There you go. So for me, this whole thing, the absolute most Spider-Man story that we've gotten on screen thus far. They tried it with some of the other Sony movies. Most people will say that the most successful attempt was Spider-Man 2. But just in terms of like, if you're going to adapt an arc from the Spider-Man comics, or even blend a couple of arcs in there, because you might as well say this was kind of Clone Saga-ish as well, just for the fact that you had multiple Spider-Men. But them doing this like this, I think was a great nod to the original way that the stories have been told, and especially when you talk about the things that he has had to give up so that other people can have normal lives. Mark, shame, shame, shame.
Well, I think also this is one of those movies that, more than any other movie, I think, in any other Marvel property, has required you to have watched a whole bunch of other ones. I mean, if you haven't seen the previous Sony iterations, you are probably like confused as hell through halfway of this film, or you're like along with the ride. But I don't think any of this is hitting quite as hard if you're not bringing those movies into the into the experience with you. Again, I know all the movies, so I don't know what the experience would be like, but it certainly feels like it would need that to have its hit.
Well, the thing is like, I don't mind them doing that for other MCU movies. The big joke is, if you don't get what's going on, then you should watch all the MC movies, and I'm totally for that. It's your fault for not watching it. But if you do material outside the MCU that came out a couple decades before, that's a totally different story. So a couple things I wanted to say was that I do agree with Darrin, though. Even though I didn't care much for the other Spider-Man, I must admit the scene where Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man saved MJ, and it was his redemption for letting Gwen Stacy die, that I did tear up a bit on that. So I must admit that. But as far as this the whole movie being Spider-Man's fault. 100% is because he fucked up Doctor Strange's spell. And it might have been noble for him to want to save those villains' lives, but in doing so, he almost destroyed the entire universe, and he got Aunt May killed. But to be fair, he did pay a price for that at the end of the movie, which is kind of fitting, but I don't know. It wasn't the most ideal storyline for me. But, also I wanted to mention this is my least favorite of the 3 Spider-Man MCU movies. I like the other 2 better. But anyway, we're over to Doctor Doom for our number 17.
Yeah. Shame. There's shame all around this panel right now. All kinds of shame. Want to know why? Because I'm listening to really great movies, really good movies, man, getting picked left and right here. And I'm starting to get baffled because there's still some down here that even after I rewatched them, I'm like, how the holy hell did one of you 3 not already pick some of these movies? How the hell could something like this get past and above Spider-Man No Way Home? Above Captain America? The first Avenger? Above Moon Knight? And I've already had to talk about one of these movies and I didn't want to talk about that one. And now I have to talk about this one too because y'all too cowardly. Shame, 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 shame. Because I have to say Ant-Man 2 at number 17. Are you crazy? I rewatched it. It's okay. The comedy is really cringe in a lot of spots, but it's all right. But it's no Spider-Man No Way Home. What do I have to say about this? Some of the gimmicks were cool. His friends, they've worn out their welcome. Like the whole thing with his buddies, it was nice in the first movie. It just kind of wore itself out already in the second movie. And Evangeline Lilly and Paul Rudd have zero chemistry. The script says, hey, guess what? You suddenly like him again. And now we're supposed to care. When she was treating him like shit for the first movie until she suddenly has that magical change of heart. And then they go right back to the way it was. And a lot of movies like this. Like, remember when it took all of Romancing the Stone for Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner to fall in love, and then right at the beginning of the second movie, they rip them apart? It's the same kind of formula, except those people in those movies had chemistry, and these 2 don't. And I liked a lot of the stuff that was going on in the movie as far as the plot went, but a lot of the writing and the comedy didn't work for me. But it still landed this high because this is what you call mid-tier. And if you're telling me that Captain America 1 and Spider-Man No Way Home and Moon Knight are mid compared to this, shame on all of you. And I hope you have horrible nightmares tonight.
It's interesting that you say all of that because I was just looking at my list, also wondering why Ant-Man and the Wasp had not been picked yet. And it would have been my choice if you hadn't said this. This is my number 33. So significantly higher on this collective list than on my own. Look, this movie is fine. It's Paul Rudd. Paul Rudd is almost always watchable. It has a beginning, there's a middle, and it ends. We get a giant man scene, which is kind of cool. We get a little bit of a Randall Park in here who's entertaining, urges him to learn some close-up magic, which we get a payoff in Wanda Vision. So, I mean, there are some things that happen here. Walton Goggins really kind of wasted in all of this outside of excuse of giving us a cool Wasp restaurant fight scene. Yeah, look, this is a fair enough, entertaining little run story. It's very mid. The fact that in this group it has lasted as high as it does. And look, I'm going to say that even my contributions, and then we're getting to this point here, I feel kind of bad with some of my choices. This was made one day. These can all shift around at any point. The movie's fine. It's not great, but I do think 17 might be a little high, just in my personal opinion.
I'm going to blame this on Mark. Yeah, I'm blaming this on you, sir. But yeah. Honestly speaking, this was next on my list. I mean, look,
nothing was stopping you from saying it earlier, Don. I didn't stop you.
it wasn't my turn. So yeah, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Like I see what they tried to do. It was a decent attempt. Didn't necessarily work. Love Paul Rudd as as Scott Lang. Love Michael Douglas. Even though like we'll never get to see the proper Ant-Man and the Wasp from the original comics. This was a decent attempt. But yeah, not the. Unfortunately, like Ant-Man's kind of trilogy is the same thing with the the drawing, the 3-step drawing of the horse kind of thing. It's going backwards. And so unfortunately we don't get we didn't get the Ant-Man trilogy that we deserved. And I don't know whose fault that is, honestly speaking. But the things that I did like about it, obviously the action was amazing. One thing that I will say about all of the Ant-Man movies is they do not lack for entertaining action. Like there's not going to be a time where you're going to watch an action sequence in any of these Ant-Man movies and be like, yeah. So unfortunately, the thing that is mid about the Ant-Man franchise is the story. Ghost wasn't as compelling of a villain as she could have been, especially like she's a former Shield assassin. This would have been perfect to throw either Nick Fury or Black Widow in and been like, oh, come on, Widow, how did you not know about this? Or they could have thrown Hawkeye, because Hawkeye I think would have fit in perfectly in an Ant-Man movie. And again, perfect time to be like, oh, so what did you know about this? And they could have tied it into something, and retcon something from a previous entry in the MCU. Again, like they did the thing where they introduced certain characters that might have been not necessarily one-offs, but more obscure. Like it seemed like to me, it almost seemed as though they were trying to copy Guardians of the Galaxy a little bit in terms of, we're going to bring in some more obscure characters and try to push them to the forefront, but unfortunately didn't do it as well. So like Bill Foster gets practically nothing to do other than just look like the biggest idiot scientist. Ghost, doesn't really do much, and then they, you bring in the quantum realm of it all with going to get the original Wasp out of the quantum realm. So there's just so much about this that I know they had very, very big concepts but I think they tried to do too much at the same time. Um, like the rescuing um, rescuing Janet Van Dyne from the quantum realm should have been a movie unto itself. You know, Ghost needing to, trying to find some element in order to stabilize herself, so that she doesn't fade off into existence, should have been a movie unto itself. Because then you could have the three-way battle between, Ant Team Ant-Man, Ghost, and then the people trying to gather the same element that she needed in order to stabilize herself. So this was too many movies jumbled into one, and so you didn't get the best product that you could have got. Yeah. So this would have been next on the list. Mark, this is still your fault.
It is not my fault, Don. You had plenty of opportunities to say this before. Anyway, and I will. So Darrin said he was going to say it next. Don said he was going to say it next. Well, guess what? I was going to say it next too. So we're all going to say it next. And Rob, before you go around pointing fingers at everyone, you chose to put this higher than Daredevil Born Again and Black Panther. I'm actually surprised that you didn't say this earlier. But anyway, so it snuck in under the radar. And I stand by putting this one spot higher than Spider-Man No Way Home, because Spider-Man No Way Home, I had problems. I had more problems with it. I had less problems with this one. But this one was more of one of those movies that was fine. I think the reason why it ranked a little bit higher for me is, to all due respect for the Don, but is Ghost, who I thought was really good in this movie. I thought she was a great villain, very menacing. The fact she could phase through walls made her really hard to defeat. But more than that, she was a relatable character. And as I said, what I look for most in these movies are characters that I can relate with, who are really fleshed out, who are interesting. The fact that you could relate to the fact that she was in complete and utter pain because of something Hank Pym did, so that she kind of had a point. And I love that, and I love the ultimate showdown in the end. Yeah, Walter Goggins' character was pretty much like unnecessary. Like, he didn't really need to be there. And honest trailers like pointed out that the whole movie's about them chasing after the shrunken building. It was like, get the shrunken building. I don't want the building. I'd never noticed that before. And what about all of the like plumbing and electricity that's connected to them? Like, how can they just, whatever though? It's Marvel. But yeah, so I thought it was a decent movie. So yeah, I think we all just let this sneak by. And by the way, I will say, and this is what I said when I announced this live stream, this concept, that this is basically a compromise. We're coming up with a top, list that's a amalgamation of all our lists. And it's a compromise. You know what they say about compromises. Compromise is when nobody's happy. But anyway, because I've been unhappy with some of the choices you guys have made as well. But anyway, this is what we got. So
one quick thing. Did anybody catch that Ghost's father was the actor who played the main guy on Fringe? What did they call them? The observers. Her dad was
I didn't catch that.
The main good guy one.
Right.
Just a weird thing.
Right, on Fringe. Yeah, that's right. I thought you said Friends at first, and I was confused. Fringe.
Yeah, so
yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah. No, I didn't know that. That's interesting. All right. So we are over. I think we're up to number 16, if I can bring this up. Yeah, 16 to Darrin.
Yeah. Interesting to note that Ant-Man and the Wasp is like the nexus point of all of our lists. We're all going to pick him at the same time. I don't know, but the quantum reality kind of makes sense. Kind of makes sense. Okay, now this one I think may definitely shock some people and skewer maybe a few lists. This is I know a lot of people like this movie. This movie is I had no rush to see. I knew exactly what this was going to be, and when I watched it finally, it was exactly that. It may be a good time, but it doesn't really connect, mean, or further any of the Marvel stories in any way, shape, or form. It is fan service, the movie, and that's Deadpool and Wolverine. Which I don't think really deserves to be much higher. And look, again, this is another one where those, it's like, I know so many people love this movie. It's like, man, we get to see Hugh Jackman. He's finally got the costume on. And it's just, I mean, yes, that's cool. Great. This movie makes no sense. It is just uses whatever hullabaloo and timey-wimey stuff in order to give itself some justification with, honestly, if you look any depth at all, doesn't make sense and doesn't really come together. And honestly, who cares? That's not what this movie about. This movie is about, again, let's talk about how great the Fox X-Men movies and all those characters and all those people that we saw and all those actors. Remember those member berries? Nom, 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 nom. It does some great turnaround. Again, bringing Chris Evans is to play the Human Torch and not Captain America. That's a fun little bit. And look, I gotta say, the whole villain thing, what the heck is her name? Charles Xavier's sister. Cassandra Nova, thank you. The whole hands through the face thing. Okay, that was, look, man, they hit it with that. That was awesome. And yes, the member berries were tasty. And seeing Hugh Jackman in the costume, yeah, great. And did they find some great emotional moments where each of our main actors can hit us in the heart muscles, which they know how to do so well? Because look, Ryan Reynolds is a funny guy who knows this character and knows how to do over the top action and knows how to take it and hit you in the heart at the same time. He just knows how to do this. Hugh Jackman is freaking Hugh Jackman. That's all great. But this movie means absolutely nothing. It does nothing for the larger Marvel universe. And for me, I like the overarching story. It's just an excuse to play in the sandbox. And if that's what you want, that's great. But I'm going to tell you something. Outside of the first Deadpool movie, I have never rewatched any of those other films. And I don't think that I will have any interest to rewatch this unless it happens to be on in the background. Because while, hey, man, we get to see Channing Tatum as Gambit, which we've all just been like thirsting for the longest time. And look, seeing Blade step out and Wesley Snipes, that was cool. But who cares? Can we please, for the love of freaking God, have some new X-Men? Okay, I don't want to see Hugh Jackman anymore. Don, how much do you hate me? I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I mean, not really.
Who are you? You're from New Zealand, aren't you? You've been faking that Los Angeles accent for all this time. I never knew. I didn't know you could be such a hateful human being, Darrin.
I got some shrimp on the bobby. I'm sorry. That's horrible. I'm gonna stop that.
That's Australian, not New Zealand. Come on.
I cannot believe this. He's still beating heart. Yes, it was fan service, the movie, and yes, I was here for it. I was here for every single second of it. Okay, from the Calvarine to them, redoing all the damn X-Men covers, showing what Wolverine would look like if they actually had him be 5'3", all of that stuff. All right, I was here for all of it. All right, no, it does absolutely nothing for the larger MCU. Deadpool is not going to become an Avenger. We know this already. It's fine. Okay? But damn it, yes, I loved every second of this absolute ridiculousness. It was absolute ridiculousness. The whole thing with the Void, if you never watched Loki before, yes, it made absolutely no sense for anything. You would have never known what the hell the TVA was. There is no reason for you to know what the TVA is if you've never watched Loki. So putting it in Deadpool and Wolverine, in order to kind of service the rest of the story, yeah, it made no sense, but who cares? I loved it anyway. And while you who claim to be a Los Angelino, an American, while you hate this masterwork, you said you will not partake again unless it happens to be on the back. Shame, sir, shame. We cancel your Disney Plus subscription post haste. Okay, you, sir, are persona non grata. Let his words be stricken from the records of history, from all annals of history. Let this man be torn, feathered.
No, we have Ironheart next week.
You know what? In the words of the great American poet, Mr. Hat, you go to hell, you hear me? You go to hell and you die.
All right, so I'm not going to be as dramatic. I had this at number 23, so it wasn't much higher. I would have gotten to it fairly soon as well. I agree with Darrin 100% about this being fan service, the movie, and me not giving a shit about any of the fan service. I wanted to see a Marvel movie. I don't give a shit about these Fox X-Men movies. I don't want to see Chris Evans as the Fantastic, as Johnny Torch or whatever. What the fuck? Like, that was such a big disappointment for me when it wasn't Captain America. I know it was a big funny moment. They're like, oh, flame on. I'm like, and then the rest of the movie, I don't give a shit about Blade. I don't give a shit about Elektra. I don't give a shit about any of these fan service thingies. But the Loki thing, I was all in for the TVA. But as I said, if you're not watching every single show and movie in the MCU, that is your fault. No one else to blame but you. But all that being said, I love the chemistry between Wolverine and Deadpool, and I think Ryan Reynolds was hilarious. I think the through character story, the emotional thing was very well earned. That ending where they saved the day by like working together, I think was really well earned. As I said, I love the TVA. I thought they were a very menacing villain. And yeah, the woman who could put the head through the skulls, like, that's fucking terrifying. So I will say this is probably like this movie just slightly less than Deadpool 2. Deadpool 2 is probably my favorite, but it's almost there. And so it's a good, this is what I said when I first came out. It's a good Deadpool movie not so good of an MCU movie. And you know what? A lot of that, I will admit, was my fault because I had different expectations and I have no one to blame for that but myself. I expected this to save the MCU and turn the multiverse storyline around, but it didn't do anything to push it forward. But again, that's my fault for my expectations. So yeah, I acknowledge it's a good movie. I think this is I'm not disappointed for this spot. I think it's a decent spot for it. So anyway, Rob, over to you.
Don's speaking my language about this. But the thing is like, I mean, everything you guys are saying, Mark and Darrin, is pretty, accurate. But I wasn't there to have my life moved. I was there to finally get the reward for being a long-suffering comic book lover, like seeing the early X-Men movies, loving them at the time, realizing as they get older, they're not going to hold up as well, but like this promise of like someday I'm going to see these things. And the fact that Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman have been, building this bromance, this, their chemistry through commercials and online battles for years made this make perfect sense. And it just hits me where I live in the comic side of things, the pure love of this medium and these books and these characters, and how many years I've been watching these things since I was a kid. The first time I saw Wolverine was on a 321 Contact magazine in the mid 80s. And I've been waiting in my mind for this kind of thing. And so for me, this was the reward for my whole life waiting. It came out on my birthday last year. It's just, for me, it's a special. And I even look at it now and it's like, how do I feel when I walk out of one of these movies? How do I personally feel? When it gets to when you're ranking things high up, it is really going to be about how, when I left the theater or the experience and everything. And that's why for me, this is number 5. And I know that is high up there. It's high up there. It's probably too high for most people. But that's because when I walked out of the theater seeing this movie, I was on more than cloud 9, man. I was on cloud 1,000,000. I'd seen something I've been waiting my whole life to see, and they delivered on so many things. Seeing Gambit done right, even if it was just for a little bit of the movie, all these things just hit me where I live. And then incorporating the TVA and everything, it's a special movie, and I know that where I rank it is way, way higher. But if I could have sent that feeling that I had when I left that movie theater to all y'all, maybe you'd change your mind, but I respect what you guys said.
Don, you didn't mention, was this in your top 10 as well? Or maybe I just missed it.
So this was actually, sorry, I don't have the list in front of me right now, but no, this was number 11.
Okay, so close to it, yeah.
Just outside the top 10 because, not a great MCU movie, but such a good time. Such a good time.
All right, Don, so you're
I
up.
do hate fun, so that is me. I do hate fun.
All right, so Don, you're up for number 15.
So number 15 may be a shocker for some people. I'm not sure whether this is on anyone else's list, but this one was the one that actually cracked the top 10 for me. It is the first MCU movie. And yes, that is Iron Man. Going back and watching that, I watched it about a month ago, just even before we had kind of solidified this. I think maybe the day before we solidified about doing this. And I was like, you know what? For this to be the very first MCU movie, when they didn't know anything about anything, this still holds up in a way that I wasn't expecting it to. Because this is, like, while it still is almost the same as Captain America in the way that it tells the origin story of Iron Man, it something about it. I can't necessarily put my finger on it because I can't say that it's just Robert Downey Jr. because Chris Evans isn't like, I don't think that anyone could play Steve Rogers better than Chris Evans. Just like Robert Downey Jr. has defined Iron Man for most people. But there's something about this movie that was damn near perfect. And you gotta mind you, this came out around the same time as The Dark Knight. And Dark Knight is, like damn near god tier of movies. And yet I could watch this after watching The Dark Knight and not feel like I'm missing something. Or that, oh, you know what, like this is somehow a letdown. Looking back on it, it's like this movie probably has no right to be as good as it is for the time period that it was made and for, for a studio just trying to get themselves off the ground and not necessarily knowing how to do all of this yet. Like, again, I could go back and watch this and I'm never gonna be like, oh man, this isn't all that good. I mean, but Iron Man was a great start. Absolutely great start. And it's one of those things where I'm like, man, this is just I'm surprised they were able to I'm surprised that they had this movie as a template, and that some movies weren't able to look at this and say, okay, cool, this is a great start. How do we improve upon this? And then for other movies, they followed it almost to a T. It still didn't necessarily work as good, but it was like, all right, you were almost there. So, they're it's funny because thinking back, like if they could go back and retroactively put Don Cheadle in the role of Rhodey, would that have made the movie better? I don't know. I mean, we didn't really have much Rhodey in there. But there was so much to like about this, and I think one of the things that I really loved, and I remember when I was watching this, I was thinking to myself, like, do you imagine how smart you would have to be in order to be Tony Stark? In order to literally be him and to be able to engineer that Iron Man suit and the arc reactor. Like, I don't know that there is a human being that's currently alive that is that smart right now. But this movie sold me on the fact that a regular guy who wasn't somehow modified or born with some sort of enhancements. He just happens to be a genius, a super genius. This movie made me believe that Tony Stark was a real man who was in his garage, who just happened to, his dad was a genius, but he's a super genius and he's taken, the stuff that his father taught him to the next level. And I think that kind of down to earth feel, while it was down to earth feel, but with just kind of hyper realistic kind of take on something that came off as so grounded. To me, I think is the thing that worked, because while everything else, in the other kind of Phase One movies worked, they didn't work as well as this one, and I think it's because they didn't really make the circumstances around the other characters be as believable. And I think the believability for me, that like Tony Stark could, like, people kind of call Elon Musk Tony Stark, like the real life Tony Stark sometimes, which I'm like, he hasn't actually invented anything. But if you were gonna go with, like, if you had somebody that you could think of, it's like, all right, wow, this is a real life person, and wow, they're smarter than anyone could possibly imagine, but they're also kind of a jerk, which, yeah, a lot of smart people are also jerks as well. I think that they did a lot right with this, just to make everything about it feel real. To where, like, if I turned on the news and saw, like, that sequence with Iron Man versus Ironmonger in the middle of the street, I would have thought, like, yeah, this is something that actually happened. I'm not exactly sure what the magic was behind them making that feel so real, but that for me was the thing that draws me back to it, is the fact that it feels like something that could have actually happened. And the gentleman yields his time.
Hey, Tony Stark, the jerk store called, and it's out of you. Sorry, I just watched that Seinfeld. So I was going to name this next. This was going to be the next one I was going to say. It's number 26 on my list. As I mentioned, I wasn't really it took me a while to get into MCU. I think I wasn't into it properly until Winter Soldier came out. So most of these Phase Ones I watched in retrospect, and when this movie first came out, I was like not interested at all. I didn't even see it until years later on DVD. So I don't have that attachment, that nostalgia for it that a lot of people do. So I don't really put it as high up as a lot of people do. That being said, it's made it fairly high on my list because it is a good movie. I think some of it has some cheesy comic booky stuff, like him building the suit in the cave is a little ridiculous, although I do like that line where he says, Tony Stark built this in a cave. Like, that's a good line. But Jeff Bridges as a villain was awesome. I mean, began the trope of the villain having the hero having to fight a villain that has the exact same powers as them. Like, Marvel ran away with it and did it over and over again, but you can't blame it because this is the first time they did it. But so I think it actually worked for this film, and I think there's a reason why people love Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. I think this is probably his best performance as Tony Stark, and you love seeing the transformation from asshole playboy to someone that the jerk store is now to a better person. So so I think it is a decent movie. So yeah, that's what I'll say. So anyway, let's hear from RDJ himself.
Sorry, guys. I'll keep this brief because this is a good movie. I just, again, I'll just say what Bill says. Iron Man is not as good as Ant-Man. But I mean, this movie kicked it off. RDJ is the reason why Iron Man is popular. He was never a big character really in the comics. He brings that right kind of element that I think Tony Stark has. I think Tony Stark in the comics is a little more serious, but once RDJ came along, they started writing the character a lot more like Robert Downey Jr. So at least the character's more likable in the comics now, but he's still pretty much just Tony Stark. And he's the one character that through the performance, I didn't like the comic more. So it's just speaks again to the testament of his performance and how he can take a character that nobody likes and make it into what they consider like he's the MCU. He's so much the MCU, they're bringing me back for Doomsday, baby. Great. So we'll see if the money pays off again, right? It probably will, even if it's not, that what anybody wanted in the first place. But this came out, it's the reason why the MCU is going, and so I think it deserves a lot of respect in that respect, but I don't think this was my number 12. So yeah, no, I mean it's really good. Jeff Bridges is excellent in it. This is a really solid movie. I just we're getting to it. We're getting to it.
Well, this is fair for my mood, because this is my number 6. I love this movie, and not only is it a good, solid movie from beginning to end, it does so much. Again, it's another one of those in phase 1 where it does so much more than it really has a right to do, especially considering how much they were kind of rushing and changing things and Frankensteining and putting this movie together. They came up with something that, again, from the beginning scene of him blowing up a mountain behind him to the final scene of Samuel Jackson coming out saying, "I want to tell you about the Avengers initiative." This hit again. I also not a huge Iron Man fan. I like him, and I like the building of suits and that kind of whole cybernetic approach and idea. That's something that rang with me. But I remember the first trailers when that mask drops down, when he blows up the tank with the little missile, the tank shoots at him and he avoids it. And he fires this tiny missile and turns around and it explodes. It's like, that's Iron Man. It's like suddenly this, even though this looks like, but not exactly like any of the suits in the comics, seeing this on screen was like, that's Iron Man. That's the look. That's the way it moves. It had the heft. It had weight. And yeah, Robert Downey Jr. makes this role. He's a guy that, an amazing actor who had his ups and downs and had this opportunity thrown in front of him, and he made the most out of it. He put everything into this. And yeah, having the dude as the villain is freaking awesome. And and so much that we take side characters, and put them in other Spider-Man movies down the road. And this is where we meet Phil Coulson for the first time, who I would have no idea would become like one of my favorite MCU characters of all time. There's a lot of love here for nostalgia, but again, it's a great movie. It's a very good movie and solid movie from beginning to end. And the fact that this gives the promise of what Marvel could do in making its own movies. Yeah, this set the template that I think let audiences go, "Oh yeah, we could see more of this. This looks like the way that you do this." And from everything else previous from, I think, yeah, this was the way that you do it. And so, yeah, I think better than Ant-Man, but we'll get to that point.
All right. So, second time in a row, Don had said the movie I was going to say, so I'm going to have to say my next and final list buster. But look, we're up to 14. top 14. It still made it very high. So, I mean, you guys shouldn't be too upset about that. It's still in the top echelon of movies. And I think there is a possibility that someone might have this as their number one. And I do apologize if that's the case, but I have to go by of what I feel. And I do like this movie a lot, but I also have tons of issues with it. And that is Avengers Infinity War. First, I'll start with what I liked about it. So I was really impressed that they managed to juggle so many characters and actually do a good job and actually give each their due. Like, not everyone had like a complete arc, but that would be impossible in like a 2.5 hour movie with like 35 characters. I think what they did do with it was super impressive. And it was really intense, and I think there were a lot of great character moments in it, and particularly the ending was a huge risk. And I remember I was actually really upset with the ending when I first saw it because I didn't want to wait a year to see what happened. But looking back and in retrospect, I think, yeah, that was actually a really good risk, really powerful. And the death of Gamora was really hit me hard, so it has some hard-hitting moments. So now let me get to my issues with it, things that bother me about it. And that can be summed up in one word: Thanos. I disagree with everyone about Thanos being a great character. I don't buy his motivation. His motivation doesn't make any sense. Why doesn't he just use the stones to create more resources? And plus, yeah, his whole motivation, I didn't get it. But the thing that bothered me more about him is that he was a Mary Sue. He was overpowered. Like, when he beat up Hulk at the start, I'm like, there was no stakes for the rest of the movie. Every time someone got in a fight with him, I was like, this is boring because I know he's just going to kick their ass. I know he's undefeatable. And then when he got the Reality Stone and he turned Drax into a Slinky, why didn't he turn everyone from a Slinky from there on? Like, if he's so overpowered at that stage, there was no stakes and it was kind of boring. And I didn't think he was a particularly good villain. And I know Alyssa, if she's still in the chat, she's going to argue with me because we've had this argument a billion times before, but I don't care. I stand by that the bullshit with Star-Lord was terrible writing and out of character for him. The fact that he attacked Thanos instead of helping them to kill Thanos. Like, I don't care how irrational he is. I don't care how angry he is. He knows the difference between helping someone and hurting someone. And in this case, he would want to hurt him. So his reaction should have been, ooh, let me help you get the glove off so you can kill him, rather than let me fuck up your thing so he gets away. Like, he would still know the difference. And I think that was done for plot contrivance. And plus, I don't give me this bullshit with Doctor Strange being like, there's only one way to defeat him. Like, they're so close to defeating him in so many times, like that time, and when Thor almost like killed him, but he didn't hit him, it didn't cut off his arm. Like, you tell me in all the millions of multiverses, there's not a one where they were managed to defeat him other than just this one that involved like a convoluted time travel plot. I don't buy it. I don't buy it for a million second. And yeah, and I think Pitch Meeting also backed me up on this when they talked about how they just wrote it for like, oh, shut up, fan. They just wrote it in to shut everyone up. But it's actually a plot hole. But as I said, like, it's 20, I think 25 on my list, so it's still high for me. It's 14 here, so don't get too upset with me. But anyway, now you guys can berate me. Start with Rob.
I am going to swiftly pass it over to Darrin because of what my choice is going to end up being because of this choice. And I have to talk about another movie I'd rather not talk about, and I don't know how it made it this far. So I'm going to pass it over to Darrin so I can do that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the rankings of this afterwards, people are going to be like, what is going on here? Yeah, I mean, that's a fair torpedo. That's my number 2. I think this is an amazing film that moves so incredibly quickly and combines so many things. I think it's like a Swiss watch, the way that this thing moves. It's the way it juggles so many characters and so many arcs and still has emotional hits and beats. And no, I think Thanos is while yes, you can have issues with what his choices and such are. I think Thanos as a realized CGI character is an astounding accomplishment. And I think the performance is amazing. The work put in, it's a shame. It's one of those where it's like, then you see other movies that are done more recently and you're like, how can you do worse than something you've already made years ago? And it's, money is, and time is usually what that ends up being. Yeah, I know that there's some faults and there's a lot of questions like, what's Thor doing in Wakanda all of a sudden? You can ask some of these questions and they're fine. But I think just the emotional path that this movie was able to carry, and again, juggling so many things, just making the decision to end on a loss for our heroes, I think is an amazing choice and does pick up what could be the final, end game journey. But I think that that's also important in order to have the impact, of the reality of what this was. So, yeah, look, at this point, I mean, from the beginning of the list, this is all personal preference. And yeah, I have torpedoed other people's lists and my list is getting torpedoed by other people. And that's sort of what happens. Who cares? This gives us an excuse to talk about movies and shows and stuff. But I think it is kind of interesting as we start to see is what are the ones that don't work for us or whose flaws stand out more than others. And I think sometimes whether or not you can get into that emotional journey is whether or not you're going to make excuses for or be willing to, go with problems or holes or inconsistencies in the script that, you could always piece of wise again if you don't care about it. But yeah, thanks for destroying my list. I appreciate that. My number one's still the best. Anyway, Don? We lost Don.
Is Don still there? He quit. Rage quit.
Don rage quit.
He probably thought we would be going on and berate Mark a whole lot longer.
A whole lot. He's like, oh man, I got 10, 15 minutes. I can give up here.
Yeah, no. Yeah, he's probably trying to find his Infinity Gauntlet that I pretty much already had so that he can change that pick. He's going to use the Reality Stone to be like, nope.
Just a quick thing. Yes, Brandon, my internet is working. As you can see, my internet was out for about almost 2 weeks. But thankfully, my neighbor knows a AT&T technician who came over, and despite there being an outage, he got my internet working. So, yay. It's always about who you know, folks.
I will agree with Mark that the Peter Quill thing still bothers me. That did bother me quite a bit. But yeah, like you said, Darrin, Thanos was the only one willing to sacrifice for what he wanted, and they were trying to save everybody, and they had to learn, it's standard comic book stuff, and it to me it was really powerful, and again set up the payoff of lots of years and years and years of stuff. But yeah, I mean, that's the way it goes. Like I said, though, I don't want to talk about the next movie next because it just doesn't make any sense in my brain.
All right. Well, should we wait for Don and see what's going on?
Well, Don, we're going to give you 30 seconds, man. We got to... We can't edit these things.
Yeah.
I know. Alyssa, you may not be wrong. I don't know.
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what. It's not, but it would be fucking hilarious if it was.
All right. Well, maybe that's Don's comment on us choosing Infinity War for. We'll pick it up when he comes back. I don't know, man. What do you want?
Okay. We can move on if you want. Hopefully, you haven't lost him permanently because that would mess up the list. All right. So, Rob, why don't you go ahead and name them?
Unfortunately, I'm going to keep this one brief because there's just not much to say because it's just, it's fine. It's just fine. Okay? I like it. The reason it's high up on the list is because it's something I would like to rewatch. And it did make me feel, like it's like, this is fun. It's got elements here and there. And I liked how they used some mysticism, and I like some fighting, and I like keeping certain characters returning and things like that. But it's and I can definitely say that this is so much better than Infinity War. I can't, because it gives me everything that I've been waiting for in a Marvel movie, more than all the heroes coming together and having the Infinity Stones and having Peter Dinklage in space, all that cool stuff. But this movie, man, this movie is so much better than that. That's why it is at lucky number 13, by the way, everybody. It's Shang-Chi. So much better than Infinity War, right? Yeah. But in all seriousness, it's here because it's logical, and I can't believe somebody else didn't say it before me, but I'm just going off of my stupid list. And I do think it's a really great introduction to this character. We get Trevor Slattery back. The Mandarin is a presence, but again, I feel he's another character that should have a lot more. I don't like that the 10 rings are actual rings that they throw around instead of rings of like that this guy has with different elements and different powers. That's, to me, I don't know why they couldn't just do that, but it was fun. I liked the sister's character. I liked everybody in the movie, but it's just okay. It's okay. That's all I have to say about it. It's just pretty okay.
Shang-Chi is my number 11, so we're oddly kind of around where it ends up being. This is like, I think, one of my favorite Phase 4 movies, even Phase 4, Phase 5. This is just a fun kung fu adventure, man. I think Simu Liu put some great action scenes. That bus fight is freaking amazing. I like a lot of the character stuff. I don't have problems with anything. I enjoyed the adventure. Bringing back Slattery from Iron Man 3 was a very interesting choice, but at least it kind of continued the character forward. Plus, it builds on top of the Hail to the King one shot where we got to see him in prison and when the real Mandarin actually took him out, which again is just kind of a fun thing from being a fan. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I mean, I know you get some big CGI action flying dragon sequence, and you're either again gonna go with that or not go with that. I actually thought Aquafina was enjoyable through this, and I know that's going to be one of those that's either she either works or doesn't work for people, and I totally respect that. It worked well enough for me. I definitely have been waiting to see this character more, and that's one of the problems I've had with a lot of these Phase 4, 5 stuff is we set some characters, then we're like, all right, well, we'll see you in a couple years, maybe. I don't know. We don't know what we're doing. We'll figure it out. So yeah, I actually really enjoyed Shang-Chi. And I would, again, it's another one that was like, I would like to see more movies with this character.
Well, it looks like Don has blipped. They were saying in the chat. So this was my number 20. So yeah, it wasn't super high on my list. But for me personally, it's it ended up a little higher than Infinity War just because I had less problems with it. That's just how my brain works. But anyway, um, yeah, I thought it was a pretty solid movie. I didn't think it was like amazing or great or anything, but I thought it was pretty solid. I liked it. I think this is one of those movies that are good because of the characters, like the strength of the characters. I thought were very interesting. I kind of liked Aquafina. I thought she was kind of funny. I think the chemistry that they had with Shang-Chi was really strong. I actually really loved that they reintroduced Trevor Slattery. And I thought he was really funny in his introduction to the film, brought a lot of light heart. The ending was kind of your typical stereotypical over the top big Marvel action sequence, but I mean it had dragons, so that was cool. But yeah, so it's solid movie. That's all I'll say. And I will say I do want to see more of this character. I think it does frustrate me a bit. I think this is a problem with Phase 4 and 5 because it frustrates me a bit that we haven't seen more Shang-Chi yet. Um, but yeah, because Phase 4 and 5 had introduced too many new characters instead of following up on the ones they did introduce, like Shang-Chi. But anyway, Don has blipped back. So, Don, I don't know if you wanted to talk about Shang-Chi or go back to Infinity War or just skip over that. But you had anything to say?
Yeah, I can't believe, absolutely shocking to say the least. Absolutely shocking. Infinity War was for me one of those movies that I was like, wow, I can't believe it that you were able to have a Marvel movie be this good with so much at stake. Because in order to take these characters from all these different franchises, put them in a story that was cohesive, um, and and made sense to where you didn't have to rewatch everything. Absolutely loved it, and for this to be so low on your list, Mark. Who are you people on this list? Who, I don't. I, Gentlemen, use time.
Don, did you have anything to say about Shang-Chi? That was the next one.
Oh, sorry. Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings. So, good movie. Um, Very zany. And I wasn't sure how to feel about them changing the nature of the Ten Rings. Because, the Ten Rings in the comic books is almost like having 10 Infinity Stones to a certain extent. Just not as powerful. Um, I liked a lot of the kind of cultural stuff they threw in there just to kind of show the difference from when Shang was, a child of the Ten Rings versus him going out on his own, being alone in the streets of San Francisco, or I think that was San Francisco they were supposed to be in. Which I'm like, no running into Ant-Man. Interesting, but yeah, it's one of those movies that I think doesn't get the credit that it deserves. I think it might be a little bit higher up on the list than I would have put it, but yeah, but this is definitely one of those movies, and I'm like, you know what? If it happens to be on or whatever may have you, I'll go and I'll watch the movie, and I enjoy myself very much. Even with Aquafina's character being in there.
All right, so Darrin, we're up to you for number 12.
All right. I feel really good about this. And I feel good about this because I think we all subconsciously in our guts, in our gizzards, feel that this is the right place for this movie. I think the chat knows that this is the proper place for this movie. Obviously, better than Black Panther. Obviously, better than Infinity War. Better than Captain America and the Civil War. At least we got to see him again because I'm talking about Paul Rudd and Ant-Man. I mean, we all know what great movie this is, obviously. This is one of our favorites, and people don't talk about it because they don't know it's their favorite. But we do. Look, I enjoyed Ant-Man. Come on, Paul Rudd is great in this. I freaking love Michael Douglas as crankety old Hank Pym. Evangelina Jolie is in the movie. Plus, of course, we get our Luis introduction, who is probably one of the bigger side characters and should just tell stories and do quick summations for everybody. And I think that is the proper place for him. Look, and really, we laid the groundwork for a man only designed only for killing. And I think, having our MODOK bit unknowingly being set by the end of this movie just obviously is one of those things that just rank it so high. Look, this was fun. I enjoyed it. They made some choices. I think the action went on pretty decently well. Is it better than Infinity War? Not really, in my mind. Obviously, it is because we're establishing fact here, folks. But yeah, again, a good enough. I know it's got its story with the whole Edgar Wright thing. I think the movie ends up doing a fun story. Is it really a heist film or not? Maybe, I don't know. Does that really matter? Because at the end, you have an amazing fight scene with a very tiny train engine in a child's room, which is one of the most amazing freaking scenes ever. So really, if you're going to make a third piece action set piece out of a child's train set and pull it off, kudos to you, man, because you just watched Ant-Man. Our number 12. 12.
Evangelina Jolie. Wait, what? But listen, you know what? Another great MCU origin story. And
sorry,
one of the
it's Evangeline Lilly. I'm sorry.
Okay, I was about to say, I'm like Evangelina. I'm like, was she really trying to do her best Angelina Jolie impression there? I'm like, okay. So definitely, like I said, great origin story. And I liked how they were able to take this version of the character because look, for most people, I think if you grew up anywhere between the 60s and 90s, then your Ant-Man is gonna be Michael Douglas's guy, Hank Pym. And Scott Lang was kind of like, I'm so who? But it worked here. The fact that they made him his mentor, but yet, he still has his like his own tricks up his sleeve with the ants. Nobody else knew about it, so no one else was really prepared except for Darrin Cross, who happens to be a crazy jerk off billionaire genius or whatever they have. But this for me worked because it showed, hey, you don't have to be a super genius in order to be able to play with these guys. You know, you can be a regular guy who just wants to do some good, who may make some mistakes, who may fumble and bumble here and there, but you know, still able to stand toe to toe and find creative ways to outsmart someone who you shouldn't be able to outsmart. Um, you know, I love the fight in Cassie's bedroom where you know you have things that shouldn't be getting huge, becoming huge, and vice versa. You know, you have the ant that becomes a pet. Um, you know, the thing with the train set and all that stuff, and it's like, yeah, when you look at it, it looked absolutely silly at regular size, but when you're standing at like about half an inch tall, and there's a giant, you know, or what can seem to be a giant train headed for you, yes, you're just gonna stand there and like, you know, um, and I think it gave a great display of Ant-Man's powers and how to use them properly. Um, you know, and also with the trials and tribulations are going through, you know, the training montage and all that. So very, very charming movie overall. Um, Even though they did change some of the motivations of it, because in the comic book, Cassie is kind of uh, uh, I don't know if they ever give her condition a name, but there's, you know, there's always something about he needs money for medical treatments for his daughter, and that's how he kind of started off. So they switched it up just a little bit here, um, but I think it still works, and I like Ant-Man a lot. So you know, yeah, don't ever try to play Ant-Man like that again. Don't do it.
All right, so this was going to be the next one I was going to name. It's number 19 on my list, so it's not like I had it super high. But unlike Darrin, I like to have fun, and I like fun movies, and that's the strength of this movie. I think the chemistry between all the characters really work. Louise is hilarious. I think Paul Rudd's even really funny in this movie, yeah, it's kind of the plot's kind of a ripoff of Iron Man, but I honestly like it better because I think it has that extra sort of humor and the extra sort of sense of character that works. So I don't, you know, why besmirching the name of Ant-Man? I think the last time we did this sort of thing, Ant-Man ended up being the top 10 as well. So I don't know. Again, there's a lot of love for Ant-Man.
Subconsciously, man, we know Ant-Man is great. No. I mean, and I do love this movie.
But yeah, so yeah, then it was like your typical villain, typical third act fight. But I think the characters and the chemistry goes a long way for me. So yeah, Doctor Doom, what do you think of this great movie?
Honestly, this is a pretty good place for it. I have it at number 13. I actually have this pretty, up there because of all the things you already said. Uh, I didn't know it was going to be as fun as it was. I love Michael Douglas. The de-aging work they did at the beginning of this, that beginning scene where you got Shield and him, going up against them, I really liked. Is this the movie that we thought we were going to get? No. But I think Peyton Reed did a really good job at coming in and making a really fun movie. And yeah, you can still see some of the things that are probably Edgar Wright influenced in here. But overall, I mean, it's just this solid heist movie. It was a different kind of movie. We got him to go up against Falcon, which was a lot of fun, going to the Avengers place and having that banter and having that pay off a little bit in Civil War. The Louise thing was fun in the first movie. The Baskin Robbins thing is really funny. And that's just some weird thing they just throw out there that, is now a quotable thing or a meme or whatever. This movie's just a lot of fun, and it showed the potential, and that if they had done better in the sequels with some of these things that they built on, I just think that this was a really, really fun, different movie that Marvel did at the time. I loved the marketing. I loved how they had Ant-Man on every like hero in the posters, like just showing him like here, there, and everywhere. I personally had the one where he was sitting on Black Widow's butt, just because that's hot, and he. So I mean, I was here for it. I saw that movie a bunch of times, and Paul Rudd's lovable, man. He's just hilarious. And even in the movies that I didn't, care for as much, and like as much as I like this first outing, he's always been great in them. It's just, he can't always help what the writing is. So uh, he's along for the ride, and man, he still looks great. He's older than me, I think, and he still looks pretty good for his age. And I want to see him keep going. I hope that Paul Rudd keeps playing Ant-Man. But yeah, that's about it. I mean, I think that at least it was my number 13, which I joked about like just before. But yeah, that's about it. I just still can't believe wow, man, I can't believe what's gonna make the top 10.
Well, we got one more. Don, you got the last entry of the night, number 11.
So number 11 is going to be another shocker. This was the capstone of Phase 1. This was our introduction to, to seeing whether or not a massive crossover could potentially work. This was one of the ones you had to start off small and build from there. But looking back on it, years later, I'm gonna say something that I don't care. Take away my nerd card if you want to. Josh Whedon is not as good as people think he is or is built up in his mind. But he has done a great job at putting together an ensemble cast and making it seem better than it actually is. And so, with that being said, number 11, The Avengers. So, essentially, this is originally kind of almost fan service the movie, right? Because you're taking all of these characters that we previously have seen in movies that we should have enjoyed for the most part, right? Maybe a couple little hit or miss things there. But this was the time where it was actual proof of concept. So it's like, hey, if this works, we can build from here. You have the basis for something that is going to be potentially earth shattering and also kind of game changing. Because before this, you had not had a bunch of movies that were interconnected in the same universe but didn't necessarily tell the same story, because all of these characters had their own individual things that they were doing. And for me, it's one of these things where it's like, oh my God, like they actually pulled this off. But then going back and watching it years later, it's one of those things. Was like, I was so hyped on the fact that they actually did this that, like, it's a decent movie. Like I remembered it kind of being more amazing, but again, it's fan service. First you start off at Shield. You start off in one of Shield's underground headquarters, and it's the Tesseract from Captain America. Oh my God, what is this doing? And then Clint Barton and Nick Fury, they're back and forth, and it's like, well, it's a door, right? Doors open two ways. And then the next thing you know, oh my God, it's Loki! Oh my God! Loki's just invaded Shield. Oh my God! Oh my God, he just turned Selvig. Oh my God, he just turned Hawkeye. So there's a lot of I can't believe they did this. And then when you go back and look at the movie without the rose-colored glasses, it's like, oh, it's a decent movie. Nothing like it's not winning any Academy Awards or anything, but it's a good movie. Throw it on while you're cleaning the house. And it's one of those things where it's like I'm always gonna have reverence for it because it did something that up until then hadn't been seen. Up until then, something like this had never been fully realized. Honestly speaking, the closest thing you would get to a crossover of this magnitude before this was Who Framed Roger Rabbit, right? So I was glad at the whole, they did the thing here, they did the thing there, this is the thing from the comic books, I can't believe, so I was all good with that. But just something about it, and maybe it was because of the mishmash of different genres and characters and trying to figure out how you put all this together and balance the tone and have everybody get, proper amount of screen time and all that. There was a lot about this movie that was very experimental, that they were able to make work. But honestly speaking, to me, it kind of suffers from a little bit of clunky dialogue here and there. A lot of the scenes on the helicarrier, I'm just like, who talks like this in real life? I don't think anyone does. There was a lot of like the intro. Well, not the intro of Black Widow, but when Black Widow goes to get Bruce Banner, I don't know, something about that felt staged. Something about that felt disingenuous. It's like I understand what they were trying to do, but for some reason, it's like going back and watching it again. It's like, something is off about this. Like it just doesn't read as true, and especially because we've seen Black Widow before, so we know that Black Widow can sell a lie, but for some reason here it just it doesn't, like, she doesn't have the same, Natasha doesn't have the same weight here somehow. And, I think Mark Ruffalo was still trying to find his Bruce Banner. So something about him doesn't work in the beginning of the movie, and then it starts to work better throughout. And then by the time you get to the whole, that's my secret cap, I'm always angry. Then it actually really does click. But before that, there's a little bit of, okay, who am I right now? And you can see him trying to find the character while he's on screen. So yeah, for me, there's a lot of this to love, but then going back and watching it without the rose-colored glasses, it's like, this actually isn't as good as I remember it, but it's still one of those things where it hits you and feels so much that it's like, I'm just gonna have to overlook the fact that there are things about this that I know are clunky. So, because it's not the prequel amount of clunky.
All right, so In the chat, they were asking if we said Avengers Age of Ultron or Thunderbolts yet, and the answer is no, we have not. They will be in the top 10. And I'll get the Thunderbolts when I get to it, but the whole time I was thinking, really, this is going to rank higher than Age of Ultron? Like, in what universe is Age of Ultron better than the first Avengers? But that is just me. That's just my humble opinion, because I agree with you, Don, what you're saying about Joss Whedon being overrated. 100%. Firefly is one of the most overrated shows of all time. It was fine. It was not a masterpiece. And yeah, and apparently he was a total asshole. But that's why I would have put Age of Ultron next, not this. But anyway, never mind. I'm not gonna go off on Age of Ultron. We'll get to that. But like, how can you say that? But anyway, so I do have nostalgia for this movie. I will be fair, because unlike Iron Man, I did go out and see this in the movie theater when it first came out, because I was so excited they were actually doing a team up movie. Because I've been waiting for an Avengers movie since I was a teenager. And I remember they came out with some movie, and I think in the 90s or early 2000s, that said Avengers was about some stupid British TV show called that. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, I want to see Captain America and Iron Man. And I think, is it the best movie ever? No. But I think a lot of it works. The team up between them, like the way they slowly introduce the characters, the way that they don't get along at first, the way that Nick Fury has to bring them together, the way they all fight through their differences. In fact, they're different. The word infighting ends up being their downfall, as Loki takes advantage of that. I think is brilliant. I think this is like the best movie Loki is in as a villain. Like, I think it's way better than the first Thor movie. In fact, I wasn't thinking it was going to be that good, because I was under impressed with Loki and Thor, but then he was so much better in this movie. And just seeing the team up, the tragic death of Agent Coulson really gets you in the feels, and I love how they played that. So yeah, it's very surprised. But anyway, coming from the person that already said Civil War and Infinity War, I know. But anyway, Rob, you're up.
I mean, I'm not gonna beat a dead horse. If he had said 3 more words after the word Avengers, it'd be a whole different conversation. Because but the thing is I just rewatched both movies one night, both with Bill from the chat. I watched Avengers the first night, and the next night we watched Age of Ultron, and I like both movies. But it was not long into the first movie where I went, holy shit, this is good. I forgot. I hadn't seen it in a while. It'd been, you put things on the shelf. You spend a bunch of time talking about other things and making videos and playing games and living your life. And suddenly, all of a sudden, you haven't seen the Avengers in like years. And I sat down and I just didn't have the same reaction, I guess. It just reminded me of how special it was and how like we are doing this, and it succeeded, and it, whatever it did for later on. I mean, it's where they got their start, and so many moments. One of my highlight is anybody that did stuff with Loki. Yeah, like the scene with Black Widow, where he thinks he's got her, and she's giving him everything. She's getting all emotional looking, and then she just turns it on him. That's such a great. She just turns around. Oh, thanks a lot. Give me what I needed. Made him the fool in that scene. Coulson dying to bring everybody back. They build him up throughout the movie. He's been this through line in a lot of the other movies. He's the guy that's there working for S.H.I.E.L.D., plucky little Agent Coulson, and then gets killed. That one thing Whedon is known for is killing the heart of his shows, and he did it here with Coulson, and it was another good move, even if it is something that he does all the time. Just everything about it. I mean, I'm always angry. This is comic book writing, not Shakespeare. So I don't need it to be in the movies where they've been developing these characters. I appreciate a lot more thoughtful dialogue that moves the characters forward. But in this, the character stuff is a little less necessary because we've already had 1 or 2 movies with them, and a lot of people already know how these characters should be in anyway. So when they give us that just snappy, quickie, quippy comic book dialogue, I'm here for it. And it just showed that it was possible, and we've gotten good movies. And I do think Age of Ultron, whenever it gets brought up, it's still pretty good, but it's not as good as this one. It just isn't.
Yeah. This is my number 5. I love this movie. And again, it's another one of those where I think it's so much better than it has any right to be. It moves from scene and character introduction very well. They really hit moments to bring each character in. They've got a moment. They catch them up to speed. I love the introduction of Ruffalo in. I actually do like that scene with Natasha at the beginning. In fact, I like Natasha a lot. I wasn't really sure with Iron Man 2. This got me like, oh, okay, this is what this character can do. This is what those options are. Okay, I was understanding the character a lot more. This is one of those, from a screenplay standpoint, you can almost clock the act changes, like with the stopwatch of where it should be at 22 minutes in, you should move from act 1 to act 2. And like this film does it from a structure standpoint. It's an astoundingly put together movie. And it's able to give us like a 40-minute act 3 action sequence that actually works, that breaks up the action, that shows us our different things. This has my favorite incarnation of the Hulk, of all of them, from a look standpoint and just interaction. To me, this is like a gorilla beast man, gamma irradiated, and it's like you see the rage and the anger, and when it's Hulk smash, it's like someone's speaking my language. It's like finally Hulk feels appreciated. It's just, and the fight just really works its way out there. Yeah, a lot of the character interactions, they've got some great dialogue moments. Yeah, I mean, for me, this is better than Age of Ultron. I know those are both Whedon bits, and we'll talk more about that. I think it's funny. I think the story was he was willing to do this one, but he was like, man, but we got to have the Vision in the second movie. And it's like he had this like vision of where to take this. And it's just funny because the one that he had to do to get to the one he wanted to do, I think ends up working structurally so much better than what his follow-up is. But yeah, I love Avengers. I will still throw that on, and almost any time if I catch a part of it, I'll end up watching the whole rest of the thing.
I didn't mention this was my number 11, so it's 11 on the list. So it packs up right there. But there was 4 I had lower than this that I think should be lower. But that's okay. That's all good. As I said, compromise, nobody's happy. But so we come to the end of the video. So I'm going to list off our collective list thus far. So, number 51 is What If Season 3. Number 50 is Secret Invasion. Number 49 is She-Hulk Attorney at Law. Number 48 is Thor Love and Thunder. Number 47 is The Marvels. Number 46 is The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. 45 is What If Season 2. 44 is Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. 43 is Captain Marvel. 42 is Captain America Civil War. 41 is Agatha All Along. 40 is Echo. 39 is Captain America Brave New World. 38 is Thor Dark World. 37 is Iron Man 2. 36 is What If Season 1. 35 is Hawkeye. 34 is Eternals. 33 is Ant-Man Quantumania. 32 is Black Panther Wakanda Forever. 31 is Iron Man 3. 30 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. 29 is Spider-Man Far From Home. 28 is Black Widow. 27 The Incredible Hulk. 26 Miss Marvel. 25 Daredevil Born Again Season 1. 24 Wanda Vision. 23 Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, 22 Thor, 21 Black Panther, 20 Moon Knight, 19 Captain America the First Avenger, 18 Spider-Man No Way Home, 17 Ant-Man and the Wasp, 16 Deadpool and Wolverine, 15 Iron Man, 14 Avengers Infinity War, 13 Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, 12 Ant-Man, and 11 The Avengers. So let's name the 10 movies left that will be in our top 10 in release order. Captain America the Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers Age of Ultron, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man Homecoming, Thor Ragnarok, Avengers Endgame, Loki Season 1, and Loki Season 2, and Thunderbolts Asterix. So that's what's going to be left for the next video, which will be next Monday, this coming Monday, 9 p.m. So we don't have to wait as long this time to get it sorted. Anyway, thank you everyone for joining. Thanks for Raph, JKman99, Alyssa for popping in, Bill, everyone else. I know Brandon was here briefly, Aaron. Everyone watching, thanks so much for jumping in, and thanks so much for, of course, my guests. So great to have them. I will start with you, Dr. Doom, if you want to give a shout out to what you're up to and where people can find you.
Doom has no need. You know where I am, and you know where I will be in your nightmares if you cross the Latvian God King. But we will be back next Monday for the top 10, and I'll be here for it. Otherwise, you can watch me playing video games right now on the channel, and with this guy over here. Now that his internet is fixed, we should be talking about Big Trouble in Little China.
Finally, yes. But we will be back here before we finally get that up and running. But that will be out soon, and you can catch that over on Smirking Reviews. I'm not doing anything on my channel right now, even though Ironheart's starting next week. Taking a little break anyway. But I will be back here next week with all these wonderful people for the top 10 of our round-robin ranked Marvel movies and shows. Don, what you up to?
Listen, the only thing I'm up to right now as far as YouTube is concerned is whenever you guys are generous enough to put me in the chat. So you catch me Monday. I'm probably going to bust a list just because I feel like it. No, I'm joking. But look, great to be here as always. You know what? I need to start doing videos and stuff again. Something. I'll get on it sooner or later. Much sooner rather than later. But anyway, see you guys on Monday. Mark, take it away.
So in the chat, apparently I skipped over number 27. Did I forget to mention that? If I did, it's the Incredible Hulk. That was number 27. Anyway, yes. Thank you all for coming. It was a lot of fun. Like when I get frustrated, it's all in good fun because that's part of the nature of this kind of thing. So it makes it fun getting my list destroyed and destroying other lists. But anyway, thanks so much, everyone, for watching. Glad you enjoyed it for this video. 3.5 hours. At least it wasn't 4.5. Hopefully next one will be shorter since we're only doing 10. But thank you so much for joining. Be sure to come back Monday to see us then. We'll see you next time.